Chapter 3056. Aochi and the two Saint Emperors sneaked into the Mountain of Bones. They disguised themselves and checked the surroundings at the same time. They would run away as soon as there were any scouts. The Skeleton Mountain was surrounded by soldiers and scouts. However, these low-grade soldiers and scouts could not find Aochi and the others. The three Saint Emperors quickly rushed in. Whoosh! They had just gone in for thousands of miles when they sensed psychic power from the left. The three Saint Emperors were shocked. They were discovered and targeted by a powerful Saint Emperor. Whoosh! A powerful Saint King charged into the air and locked onto them. A rather angry voice boomed out, "The Scarlet Dragon Race? Do you really think the Yin and Yang universe is your backyard? You think you can come here as you please?" One of the Red Dragon Race's patriarchs was pissed. He snorted, "What? Is this your territory? We are here. What's wrong?" The 33 races all had pride. As far as they were concerned, they were the rulers of this region and the other races were ruled. In this region, they were the overlords and the other races were puny insects. The Saint Emperor snorted, "Nothing much. But since you are here, don't think about leaving in one piece." Whoosh! The Saint Emperor threw a bead to the sky. The bead exploded and a huge firework bloomed in the sky. Aochi and the other two Saint Emperors' expressions changed. One of the patriarchs said, "You two go first. I will cover you. I don't think they will dare to kill me." "Okay." Aochi nodded. They were not here to fight or take treasures. They were here to capture Luli. This was a mission given to them by Aoding. Their death was not a big deal, but Aoding's mission must be completed. If Luli escaped, Aoding would be humiliated. Aochi and one of the Saint Emperors dashed in while the other went to the Saint Emperor of a minor race. He never thought of killing the Saint Emperor of a minor race. He just wanted to stall him so that Aochi could go deeper into the Mountain of Bones. Woo whistling sounds could be heard as more than a dozen Saint Emperor dynasty experts arrived. But by the time they arrived, Aochi and the others had already entered the depths of the Skeletal Mountain. Crimson Dragon Race? The experts of the Crimson Dragon Race have appeared openly in the Yin-Yang world? Are you bullying us because we don't have any experts? Take him down and hand him over to the Desolate Race. What will the Desolate Race say? Is the agreement from back then still valid? Capture him and record this scene. If he dares to resist, kill him. The Crimson Dragon Race can't blame us for violating the agreement first. One by one, the Saint Emperors shouted, but the powerhouses of the Crimson Dragon Race did not care at all. So what if they captured him? The Desolate Race would not kill him. At most, they would imprison him for a few years. Wouldn't it be the same for him to cultivate anywhere? Of course, if he could avoid being taken down, he definitely wouldn't want to. That would be very embarrassing. He released a powerful attack, forcing the Saint Emperor in front of him to retreat. Then, he flew up into the sky. Still want to escape? The group of Saint Kings immediately snorted coldly. Afterward, countless experts charged into the sky. A few Saint Kings launched attacks, easily stopping the Saint Kings of the Scarlet Dragon clan. More than a dozen Saint Kings charged forward and surrounded the Saint King. The Saint King was unwilling to surrender, and this scene had been recorded by a few Saint Kings. If he surrendered, it would be very embarrassing. There was no suspense in this battle. After 5 minutes, the Saint King was seriously injured and unconscious. A Saint King expert waved his hand and said, "Take him away. Send him back to the Desolate Race and let them deal with him." There are 2 more Saint Kings that have charged in. The Saint King from a small race bellowed. All the Saint Kings immediately flew into the depths of Skull Mountain. Since they had taken down one Saint King from the Crimson Dragon clan, they did not mind taking down the other Saint Kings. Another 3 Saint Kings from the Crimson Dragon clan had come, confirming the rumors from before. It seemed like the Skull Mountain's main tomb had been discovered. Was Emperor Yang's halberd about to appear? The battle here had alarmed many nearby scouts. Previously, it was just a rumor, but now that they had seen it with their own eyes, it caused an uproar. It seemed like the news of Emperor Yong's halberd appearing in Skull Mountain was true. If not, the Crimson Dragon clan would not have sent so many people over. The news quickly spread throughout the Yin and Yang world. Following that, it spread outwards at a terrifying speed throughout the infinite desolate star region. The Yin and Yang world's Skull Mountain's rare treasure had appeared. The Crimson Dragon clan and Tiango clan had violated the agreement and sent many experts in to snatch the treasure. Now, one of the Crimson Dragon clan's Saint Kings had been taken down. After the news spread, countless experts from the small races immediately rushed towards the Yin and Yang world. First, they wanted to snatch the treasure. Second, they wanted to join forces to deal with the Crimson Dragon clan and Tiango clan. Usually, these small races did not dare to offend the 33 large races. They were often bullied by the large races. Now that they had a rare opportunity, they were in the right. They naturally wanted to seize this opportunity to teach the Crimson Dragon clan and Heavenly Dog clan a lesson. They wanted to see how the desolate race would deal with this matter. They secretly made up their minds that no matter how many Saint Kings the Heavenly Dog clan and Crimson Dragon clan sent, they would take them down and hand them over to the desolate race. They wanted to see how the desolate race would deal with it. After the desolate race learned of this matter, they immediately sent a message to the nearby elders, asking them to rush over to mediate the matter. The desolate race was afraid that the Crimson Dragon clan and Heavenly Dog clan would mobilize a large number of experts into the Yin and Yang world. When that happened, it would probably lead to a huge war. These small races were originally angry and wanted to overturn the current situation. If they did not stir up trouble, how would they have the chance to rise up? There happened to be 3 desolate race members nearby. They were Miss Li and 2 elders. Miss Li did not return to the flying immortal world after the Shao demon died. Instead, she went to a strange world nearby. Something strange had happened in this world, so Miss Li went there to explore. After Miss Li received the order, she immediately flew towards the Yin and Yang world with the 2 elders. They were representing the desolate race to mediate. They had the imperial sword in their hand. Although there were only 3 sages, and they were not particularly strong, who dared to belittle them as they represented the desolate race. Belittling Miss Li and company was equivalent to smacking the desolate race in the face. In half a month, Miss Li and company arrived at the Yin and Yang world. They did not enter directly, but instead sent a message to the scouts outside. Half a day later, 3 sage experts came out. They were the experts from the 3 races that occupied Yangon City. They were also the strongest elders of the large races in the Yin and Yang world. Miss Li indicated that she was representing the desolate race, so the 3 elders politely invited Miss Li and company in. Ignoring the fact that the desolate race had sent an important lady and 2 elders, even a small warrior had to be given sufficient courtesy as long as he represented the desolate race. Miss Li did not go to Yangon City, but went straight to MT Skeleton. The desolate race headquarters did not tell her what to do, and only instructed her to act according to the circumstances. In principle, they could not let both sides really fight, or cause a huge battle royale. Lead the way. Bring me to the Red Dragon race's experts. After I find them, I will make them give you an explanation. After Miss Li arrived at MT Skeleton, she waved her hand and said, regardless, the Red Dragon race and the Tiango race had crossed the line. Since they had crossed the line, they had to give them an explanation. Please remember this book's domain name. 3rd Sect Masters Mobile Version. Chapter 3057. What Luli did not know was that his little trick had stirred up a storm in the outside world. He had been cultivating under that miraculous tree for over 2 months. He had mastered the skill of transfiguration. According to his original estimation, it would take him more than half a year to master the skill of transfiguration. However, it only took him 2 months under the tree. Admittedly, this was a miraculous tree. Blood Fairy had solved the runes on the tree. She just did not wake Luli up since he was cultivating. Ha ha! Luli was relieved after he woke up. At the very least, his pursuers would not be able to locate him. In other words, they would not be able to track him down. Where are they? Luli asked. Blood Fairy answered, We are close. We are 3 doors away. How is that possible? Luli was shocked. Blood Fairy said it would take her half a year. It had only been 2 months. How could she have solved 20 doors in a row? This was not normal. Blood Fairy explained, It is possible that reinforcements have come, a master of inhibition formations. The previous 7 or 8 doors were slow. Later on, they sped up and could solve 1 door in half a day. It must be a master of inhibition formations. Okay. Luli nodded. He stood up and asked, Have you solved the runes on the tree? With that confirmed, Luli took out a weapon and dug up an area with a radius of 1,000 feet around the tree. Then, he carried the tree into the holy mountain. Luli placed the tree by the pond. The roots of the tree pierced into the ground. There were runes in the ground, but the tree ignored them. Luli also noticed that the roots of the tree were extending toward the pond. All the roots were approaching the pond. More importantly, the roots were absorbing energy from the pond, but only a small amount. Will this tree become even more powerful after absorbing the energy from the heavenly pool? Luli was intrigued, but he did not have the time to think. He told Blood Fairy to fly the holy mountain to the depth of the valley. Whoosh, 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 when the holy mountain moved, countless trees in the vicinity also moved. It wasn't the trees that moved, but many green snakes hidden in the trees swarmed out. Countless huge tails swept towards the holy mountain. Ignore these snakes. Rush out and find the exit. Luli and Blood Fairy ordered. They dashed forward. There were too many snakes in the valley. They could not tell how strong they were. The sacred mountain's defense was too strong. These snakes couldn't break it. However, Luli checked and found that these snakes were fast and could spit out poison. Luli didn't know exactly how strong the venom was, but the snakes that could appear here couldn't be weak. Let's hope these snakes can stop our pursuers. Luli prayed to himself. The valley was large, with a radius of tens of thousands of miles. He walked around the place but couldn't find the door. Where's the door? Luli was getting impatient. He asked Blood Fairy to fly the holy mountain as fast as possible while he used the trace of fundamental principles to sense the surroundings. After another round, Luli finally found the exit. The exit was buried deep. It was not on the surrounding cliffs, but under the ground. It was under a tree and the tree was surrounded by snakes. There must be tens of thousands of them. Blood Fairy, go and crack the door. As soon as Blood Fairy went out, she came back in. The venom of the snakes could hurt her. Luli had no other choice but to use dragon transformation and the armor of origin energy to dash out. Boom, boom, boom. As soon as he went out, he smashed at the snakes with the chains of order. What happened next shocked Luli. Many of the snakes were smashed away, but none of them died. The snakes were strong in defense. Woo woo, Luli took out his horn and launched soul attacks. However, these soul attacks had no effect on the vipers. The vipers came from all directions and spat out their venom. Luli's origin energy armor was being corroded. Buzzing. Luli couldn't stand it any longer. He quickly sneaked into the sacred mountain. He thought about it and controlled the sacred mountain to crash downward. The tree and the snakes nearby were all knocked away. The mountain also made a hole in the ground and smashed into the door. Now it was done. The holy mountain was right next to the door. Blood Fairy could go through the mountain and into the door. It would be easy to crack the door. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Many snakes swarmed over, but they were all blocked by the holy mountain. The snakes could not reach Blood Fairy. Half a day later, the door was cracked open. The holy mountain flew in and appeared in a hall. Master, Are you going to build some divine patterns? Blood Fairy asked telepathically. She had set up all the gates before. Luli shook his head. No need. It will take us a long time and they can crack it so fast. There is no point in doing it. Let's go. Blood Fairy only knew a few divine patterns. It would be easier for the later warriors to figure them out. If so, there was no point in building divine patterns. Running away was the right way. There were 2 doors in this hall. There must be many materials or elixirs behind one of the doors. Luli did not care about that. At the moment, mountains of materials and elixirs were piled up on the ground by the pond. It was pointless for Luli to take them now. Crack this door, Luli said, pointing to another door. 2 hours later, this door was cracked open. Luli's eyes glowed after he checked. This was because there was a corridor behind the door, and there was a fork in the corridor. There were several paths here. In the old days it would be pointless, but things were different now. Luli had mastered the skill of transfiguration. He could hide his energy completely. The Heavenly Hound race would not be able to track him, or else the Shao demon would have been killed. Buzzing, Luli dashed out from the holy mountain and put it away. Then, his energy faded away. Even his breath of life was gone, just like air. But he was still there. Whoosh! Luli flew forward slowly. He went around the 3 paths and then went to the one on the left. Dozens of miles later, 3 more paths appeared. Luli was overjoyed. The more paths there were, the more difficult it would be for the enemies to track him down. Something that made him ecstatic was still happening. He kept flying forward, and forks kept appearing in front of him. This was a labyrinth. No, a maze. Luli suddenly understood. A maze meant that it would be hard for him to find the exit. He would be trapped in here as well. On the other hand, the pursuers would be here soon. It was only a matter of time before he ran into them in this maze. Please remember the domain name of this book. 3rd Sect Leader's Mobile Version. Chapter 3058. Blood Fairy, go and see if you can find the way. Since Blood Fairy and Luli had a spiritual connection, he was not afraid that she would lose her way. At the very least, she could find him. Blood Fairy went underground. Luli did not wait around. He pressed on, trying to find a way out. What if he was lucky enough to find a way out by a blind cat or a dead mouse? As it turned out, he had been overthinking. An hour later, he was at his top speed. He reached the end of a path, but it was a dead end. It was a wall engraved with powerful runes. Luli tried to smash at the wall, but it did not budge. Luli had to go back and take another path. After the time for half an incense stick to burn, he reached the end of another path. It was still a dead end. Luli kept on running. He was getting more and more anxious. He was being chased by a group of Saint Kings. The mountain would not be able to hold them off. Sooner or later, the mountain would be breached. Time moved on. 10 hours later, Luli had reached the end of 7 or 8 paths. All of them were dead ends. He gave up. There were so many paths. It was unlikely that he could find a way out by relying on luck. Otherwise, this place would not have been set up like this. He had to wait for Blood Fairy to come back. He took out the mountain and went in. Blood Fairy had taught him the runes of the mountain. He could control them easily now. He sat under the tree, got rid of the distracting thoughts, and began to cultivate stealth. Blood Fairy might not be able to find the way out. Therefore, Luli had a second option, which was to cultivate stealth. The terrain here was complicated. He had concealed his energy. What if he could master stealth before his enemies found him? By then, he could go anywhere in the world, and those Saint Kings would not be able to find him. Soon, 10 days passed. 7 powerful warriors had reached this level. Blood Fairy was right. The other doors were broken down so easily because Aochi had come in. Aochi and another senior patriarch caught up as fast as they could. They cracked the runes and caught up with Luli. What? After entering this stage, Goen suddenly stopped. His large nose twitched, and a trace of astonishment appeared in his eyes. He closed his eyes and sensed for a moment before saying, "Oh no, the worst-case scenario has appeared." "What happened?" Aou swept a glance over, and the rest of the Saint Emperors looked at Goen smiled bitterly and said, "That brat's aura has completely disappeared. There's no aura at all." "How is this possible?" Aou said in bewilderment. "Along the way there has been his aura, why is there no aura here? Could he fly into the sky, or burrow into the ground?" "Grand Elder Goen, did you sense wrongly?" Aou. Hearing this, Aou's expression turned cold, and he reprimanded, "If you dare to be rude to Grand Elder Goen again, I will definitely report this to the Patriarch when we return, and he will punish you severely." Aou seemed to be more afraid of Aou. He curled his lips and no longer spoke. Goen ignored Aou and looked at Aou, saying, "I've always been worried that this kid obtained Xiao Mo's true inheritance. Now it seems that the possibility is very high. He might have already succeeded in cultivating the divine transformation art. He can completely conceal his aura now. I can't track his aura anymore." "Xiao Devil?" Aou's eyes were full of hatred as he gritted his teeth and said, "This old devil actually passed such a powerful secret art to a human brat? Such a heaven-shaking divine art to an outsider?" Goen thought for a moment and said, "I guess he has no other way? The Spirit King race has no clansmen left. He was already at death's door at that time and didn't want his own secret art to be lost. That's why this human bastard benefited from it. Then we have to chase after him even more." Aou said, "If we can capture this brat and interrogate him, we will have made a huge profit this time. Elder Goen, what do you say? Should we retreat? Or should we chase together?" "Let's chase," Goen said helplessly. "We have been chasing for so long, how can we give up halfway? If this spreads out, I will have no place to put my old face." Soon, they reached a fork in the road. Aouchi glanced around and said, "This should be a maze. There should be many forks in the road. We still can't sense that brat's aura, it will be even more difficult to track him." Aou looked at Aouchi and said, "Aouchi, can you solve this maze and find the right way out?" "Difficult we have to see first," Aouchi said after looking around for a moment. "Even you say it is difficult?" Aou's eyes glowed and said, "If even you can't solve it, then that brat might still be trapped here. Let's split up and send a message as soon as we find him. If not, we will meet back here in a month." Okay. They were not worried about Lu Li's abilities. Therefore, they didn't have to worry about the dangers of splitting up. The group of powerful warriors split up and went in different directions. They were fast. Even though there were countless paths, they could finish searching all of them in a couple of months based on their speed. It was highly possible that they would meet Lu Li. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. In the desert behind Lu Li, a group of people were running with Lady Li in the lead. There were more than 30 Saint Kings from different races in the Yin and Yang universe. Lady Li was here to find the powerful warriors of the Red Dragon race and the Heaven Hound race. The other races were here as well. Of course, most of them were here to fight for the halberd of Sovereign Yong. They were trapped in the desert where there was a strong formation of illusion. The more than 30 Saint Kings knew some divine glyphs, but none of them were as good as Goen, let alone Aouchi. Therefore, they had been flying in here for a long time, but could not find a way out. Stop! Lady Li realized they could not go on like this. If they kept flying, it would be hard for them to get out. She waved her hand. The blue diamond mark between her eyebrows glowed. Many pictures flashed across her eyes. After a full 10 breaths of time, her eyes revealed a trace of surprise, and she murmured in a low voice, "That human brat is actually here? The Heaven Hound race and the Red Dragon race are after him? Isn't it because of the halberd of Sovereign Yong?" Lady Li murmured in a low voice. The patriarchs nearby did not hear her. They all looked over with confusion. Lady Li waved her hand and said, "Come with me." I know the way out. Lady Li led the group of Saint Kings in a circle. Soon, they left the desert and arrived at the canyon. Seeing the corpses of the monsters all over the mountain, one of the Saint Kings cried out, "Experts came in a long time ago. These beasts were killed a few months ago. It seems like the experts of the Red Dragon race and the Heaven Hound race came in before. These beasts look very powerful." An old man had a pointy head like a corn bud. His eyes lit up with a strange light as he said, "This is most likely the main tomb of Emperor Yong. The one that was rumored to be a fake tomb, this is the real one. Let's go. We have to catch up quickly. The halberd of Sovereign Yong must not fall into the hands of the Heaven Hound race and the Red Dragon race." The group of Saint Kings became excited and quickly flew forward. Lady Li sighed helplessly and followed. Her eyes were still filled with doubt. That human punk did not die? How did he manage to escape back then? Please remember this book's domain name. Third Sect Leader's mobile version. Chapter 3059. Master, I found you. Luli was still cultivating when he heard the voice, which cheered him up. He had been cultivating for over a month. He wondered if the pursuers were here yet. "Is it far?" Luli asked. Then he asked, "Where are the pursuers? Have you found them?" "The exit is far away." Blood Fairy replied, "There are 7 pursuers, and they're all looking for you. 2 of them aren't far from you, but this place is a labyrinth with paths everywhere. I'll lead the way. I'll make sure they don't run into you." "Let's go." Luli was overjoyed. Blood Fairy flew the Holy Mountain slowly. The Holy Mountain was neither fast nor slow. It took many turns and Luli did not even know where he was. Blood Fairy was able to pinpoint the exact location of the Saint Emperors. She took a detour around them. Over 2 hours later, Blood Fairy found the exit. It was a door. The rune on the door had been activated. Blood Fairy had activated the rune when she found the door. The Holy Mountain flew in. Inside was another hall. This time, Luli asked Blood Fairy to set the rune on the door. The rune was simple, just to make sure that the pursuers would come out from the maze. "There are 4 doors in this hall?" Luli was delighted to take a look. The 4 doors could not all contain treasures. There must be 2 paths. In that case, it would be more difficult for the pursuers to track him down. He was not leaking any energy. The enemies would not be able to track him down based on his energy. Luli asked Blood Fairy to crack open the 4 doors. As he had expected, one of the doors contained materials. The other 3 doors led to different paths. They were all corridors and they looked the same. "Close these 2 doors. Follow the original arrangement of the divine inscriptions. After we enter, the divine inscriptions on these doors must be restored to their original state," Luli ordered. Blood Fairy restored the runes on the 2 doors. Luli entered the 3rd path. When Blood Fairy was done, Luli flew forward on the Holy Mountain. The corridor was long and dim. It was spacious, with a width of 2 miles. It led to the unknown place. Luli sensed danger, but he did not worry. No matter how dangerous it was, the Holy Mountain could not be cracked open. Woo woo woo. Thousands of miles later, Luli suddenly heard a chilly wind howling ahead of him. He checked with psychic power and saw a dark cloud drifting over. Clearly, demons and monsters were coming. They must be creatures of darkness or souls. As expected, the black wind floated over, and a strange energy began to invade the Holy Mountain. Blood Fairy sensed it immediately, and she said, "Master, a spirit monster has entered the Holy Mountain and is heading towards you." And Luli sensed it. He took the initiative. He took out his horn and released the law of divine sound. Many powerful soul attacks were directed at the soul monsters. There were many soul form monsters, thousands of them. These soul form monsters had no physical form and looked like worms. They were very small, so there was nothing strange about them. However, when Luli released his soul attack, he realized that the insects were ineffective. He was shocked. If it was a spirit monster, then it had to release a soul attack to be effective. Ordinary attacks were ineffective against spirit monsters. His divine sound law was not weak, and his soul was very strong. Yet, it was ineffective against these soul-body monsters? Formation skills. Luli used formation skills, and this time, it worked. One worm was imprisoned. However, each formation skill could only imprison one worm. This time, there were thousands of them. The worms were fast. By the time Luli could imprison them one by one, they would have reached him. What to do? Luli thought. If push came to shove, he would have to use a drop of purple divinity. If the worms could get close to him, his soul might be in danger. Luli continued to release his spiritual formations and imprisoned dozens of worms. More worms had arrived near Luli. Luli had no other choice. He was about to use a drop of purple divinity when he noticed that the tree behind him was glowing. Then, a green shield covered him up. What? Luli was surprised. Why would the tree produce a shield? What was the function of the shield? Soon, countless worms came over, covering the sky and the ground. Dark clouds rolled over. However, when the dark clouds reached the shield, they could not go in. It seemed that the worms were afraid of the shield and did not dare to get close. This tree is impressive. Luli turned around and looked at the tree. He was impressed. Not only could the tree help in cultivation, but it could also fend off the attacks of soul-body monsters. That was amazing. After a moment, Luli made sure that the soul-body monsters could not come in. He said to Blood Fairy, come to the tree as well. Fly the holy mountain forward and go through this corridor as soon as possible. Okay. The holy mountain flew on quickly. Along the way, there were so many of these soul-body monsters. The entire corridor was filled with them. Luli could not tell how many there were. Countless soul-body monsters entered the holy mountain, but they were all stopped by the shield of the tree. None of the worms dared to go in. Luli was alarmed. If it were not for the shield, he would not know what to do. The purple divinity could stop the worms for a while, but could it stop all of them? After the time for one incense stick to burn, the holy mountain arrived at the end of the corridor. There was a door. Luli found himself in a grand hall after he cracked the door open. Luli's expression grew solemn as he stepped into the hall. He had a feeling that he was about to reach the main burial ground. Such a grand hall. If this was just a branch burial ground or a fake one, then it would be too extravagant. This great hall was very imposing. It was resplendent with gold and jade, and there were all kinds of reliefs on the walls. There were countless large stone pillars in the great hall, and the reliefs on these stone pillars looked very lifelike. There were also faint divine runes on the stone pillars. The entire great hall gave off an inexplicable sense of pressure, making it hard for people to breathe. This hall is dangerous. Luli sensed for a moment. His heart was pounding. The hall was empty, but somehow, Luli felt something was off. This place was like a dense jungle where ferocious beasts were lurking. Luli did not dare to move around. He used the mark of Tao to sense the surroundings carefully. At the same time, he asked Blood Fairy to check the runes in the hall. Master, the stone pillars and the walls have runes. Do not touch them. Blood Fairy did not find anything wrong. Luli did not sense anything wrong either. He sat on the holy mountain and flew forward slowly. Buzzing. When Luli passed between two stone pillars, the runes on the pillars suddenly glowed. Then, the space around the holy mountain trembled. Luli was forced out. Whoosh! In the stone column on the left, on a relief sculpture, there was a huge hand. It suddenly came out and grabbed at Luli. The speed was so fast that the hand reached out at Luli's head as soon as Luli was shaken out. Please remember this book's original domain name. Third Sect Leader's mobile version. Chapter 3060. Roar. Luli reacted quickly. He released the dragon transformation at once. Chains of order came out and swept at the arm. With a muffled sound, the arm was knocked back and then vanished. Luli stepped back quickly. He looked at the stone pillars on both sides solemnly. That strike was powerful. If it were not for the fact that he reacted fast enough, he would have been hit. There were dozens of stone pillars here, and each of them was covered with relief. If all the reliefs could be attacked, then it would be difficult to go through the hall. More importantly, the space here would be shaken. He could not use the sacred mountain. Luli himself was shaken as well, which slowed him down. The hall was not particularly long, but there were many stone pillars and walls on both sides with relief. There were no blind spots. In order to go through, Luli would have to withstand the attacks from the relief. While they were called carvings, they were actually attacks from divine glyphs. Luli asked Blood Fairy, "Can the divine glyphs on the pillars be deciphered?" "I will go and have a look." Blood Fairy was not sure. She snuck into the ground to check. After an hour, she said, "Master, the divine patterns here are very strong. They seem to be connected to the larger ones in the main burial ground. Therefore, it is difficult to decipher them. Even if we can, it will take years." "Never mind then." Luli took a deep breath. He had decided to force his way through. There was no other way. He had to rely on his own strength. If he could not go through, then he would be trapped here until his pursuers caught up with him. When the sacred mountain was cracked open, Luli would be torn apart. Whoosh! Luli flew over slowly. When he flew past two stone pillars, both of them glowed. Then, the space began to tremble. Luli slowed down. Then, the reliefs inside the stone pillars began to move. The arm that Luli had smashed away came out again. A hand and an arrow came at Luli, one on the left and the other on the right. Almost at the same time, both were fast. Luli swung the chains of order at the arrow. At the same time, he punched at the hand on the left. With a muffled sound, the arrow was shattered. Luli trembled. There was blood on his arm, but the hand was shattered as well. "Go!" Luli did not stop. He flew forward quickly. Soon, he reached the middle of the second row of pillars. The pillars were glowing as well. The space was shaking again. This time, there were 4 attacks, 2 on each side. Luli swung his chains of order to the left and released his Dharma form to the right to see if he could shatter the attack from the right. A huge silver dragon flew out and smashed towards a beam of light and a bone claw on the right. The Dharma idol's attack was not bad. It dispersed the 2 attacks from the right. Not bad. Luli nodded to himself and flew on. As he had expected, there were 6 attacks coming from the 2 stone pillars in front of him. Also, the attacks were more powerful than before. Boom, 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 boom. Luli couldn't block it this time. He was hit by one of the attacks and his origin energy armor cracked. However, he resisted most of the force and didn't suffer any serious injuries. There were 8 more rows of stone columns in front of him, which meant that Luli had to endure 8 more attacks. If each attack was stronger than the previous one, it would be a question of whether he could withstand it. He had come this far. What else could he say? He had to make up his mind and press on. The 4th attack became 8, but it was not much more powerful. Luli took it. This time, he was even more injured. This time, Luli stopped to consume some elixirs. He wanted to recover before moving on. Buzzing. Unexpectedly, after a moment, the 4 pillars around him suddenly lit up and then they began to attack. Luli rushed forward at once. The runes here would not leave any blind spots. Luli would not have any time to catch his breath. Boom, boom, boom. Luli rushed on, exerting all his skills. Once again, he released the sacred mountain. He could not stay in the sacred mountain because he would be shaken out, but he could use the sacred mountain as a shield to shield him from attacks on one side. In this way, he only needed to deal with the attacks on one side. In this way, he would be under less pressure. Even though he would still be injured, it would not be serious. Along the way, Luli felt he had overcome all difficulties. In one breath, He had passed 6 rows of stone columns. Poof! On the 7th row, Luli could not stand it anymore. He was badly injured. Blood oozed out from his mouth. The scales on his chest and back were cracked. His bones could be seen in many places. Move! There was only one level left. As long as he could pass it, he would be victorious and he would be able to live. He took a deep breath and flew forward. The 2 stone pillars immediately shone brightly, and countless attacks shot out. This time, the stone pillars on both sides shot out dozens of attacks, and each attack was extremely terrifying. Luli took out the sacred mountain and enlarged it. He hid on one side of the mountain so that he would not have to worry about the attacks from the left. He only had to defend against the attacks from the right. Dharma forms, blades of origin energy, chains of order, and so on. Luli exerted all his means to neutralize many attacks. Even so, he was still hit by several attacks. That being said, Luli could not care less. He dashed forward like crazy. Boom, boom, boom. On his way out, he was hit twice more. His head was hit as well. He blacked out and fell to the ground. His breaths were weak. Whoosh! Blood Fairy flew the sacred mountain over. She took Luli in and threw him into the pond. There was some energy in the pond. After Luli absorbed the energy, his wounds began to heal. He was not going to die. Whoosh! Blood Fairy flew the sacred mountain forward. She knew that there were pursuers. The further they could go, the better. There was a door up ahead. Naturally, this door was engraved with patterns as well. Blood Fairy stopped the sacred mountain and began to crack the door. A moment later, Blood Fairy was shocked. The patterns on the door were much stronger than before. It would take her half a month to crack it. By then, the pursuers would have caught up. Blood Fairy did not have human emotions. She did not have time to worry. She began to crack the patterns quickly. She would have to wait until Luli woke up. His wounds were serious, but he would wake up in a couple of days. Blood Fairy was wrong. Luli had been in a coma for a long time. Soon, 10 days had passed, and Luli had not woken up. At that moment, she heard some noises. 4 powerful warriors came in. It was Aou, Aochi, Goen, and Aoyun. Oh no! Blood Fairy sensed it. She said to Luli in fear, "Master, wake up. The pursuers are here." Chapter 3061. Aochi and the others wandered around the maze for a long time. Eventually, it was Aochi who solved the runes and found the exit. Otherwise, it would be impossible to find the exit by wandering around randomly. However, since all the powerful warriors were separated, Aochi only found a few. Fearing that Luli would run away, Aou went after Luli as fast as he could without waiting for the other Saint Kings. The valley behind them did not have much of an effect on them. There were many poisonous snakes, but Aou was a famous expert of the Crimson Dragon race. Fierce beasts of this level were naturally unable to harm him. Otherwise, he would have wasted all these years. The soul monsters behind them could not stop them either. Luli was wrong. Aou and the others did not go the same way, but they would all end up in this hall. We got him. The 4 powerful warriors saw the sacred mountain in the distance and the blood on the ground. They were overjoyed. After such a long time, they finally caught up with Luli. Goen and Aoyue were both worried. They didn't expect that they would catch up with Luli here. Ha ha ha, where are you going this time? Aoyun did not have time to rest. He dashed forward like crazy. As soon as he arrived at the first row of stone columns, the stone columns glared and then 2 attacks were launched. Aoyun did not have time to react and was smashed back. But he was strong, so he was not hurt. Don't be reckless. Aou scolded. Don't you see the blood? There are runes here. Aochi, can you see if you can solve them? Aochi had been studying. After an hour, he shook his head and said, "The runes here are hard to solve. It will take at least a few years. It is not worth it. Let's force our way in." Okay. Aoyu nodded. He waved his hand and said, I will lead the way. Aochi and Goen, you stay in the middle. Aoyun, you stay behind. Okay. Aochi and Goen were weaker, so they were in the middle to protect them. Of course, Aochi and Goen were happy. With someone to protect them, they didn't have to suffer. Boom, boom, boom. The four of them flew past the first row of stone columns. 2 of them lit up. This time, it was not 2 attacks but 10. Aoyu's battle prowess was indeed formidable. He released an origin energy shield to block the attack on one side. On the other side, he released 2 attacks and directly shattered them. Go! Aoyu was full of confidence. He sensed that the power of this attack was only SOSO, so he didn't care. Little did they know that because the 4 of them walked together, there were 2 more attacks. In the second row of stone pillars, the number of attacks had increased to 20, and their power had increased by a lot. However, this was not a problem for Aoyu and Aoyun. They easily resolved all the attacks. When they reached the third row, Aoyu felt that something was wrong. This was because the number of attacks had increased to 40. Aoyu and Aoyun could no longer deal with them, so Goen and Aochi had no choice but to act. Most importantly, Aochi was injured. This was only the third row. There were still so many rows of stone pillars in front of them. The power was multiplied. Were they sure they could rush through? If they couldn't break through, not to mention Aoyu, even Goen and Aochi would die. Aochi was also aware of this. He shouted, "Retreat first, don't rush forward or something bad will happen." Aoyu nodded his head and led them back. It was difficult to advance, but it was especially easy to retreat. The attacks had weakened, and the 4 Saint Emperors easily retreated. How did that kid get past such a terrifying attack? Did he rely on that mountain? Aoyun could not figure it out. Luli was just a warrior of the Overlord realm. Not even a group of Saint Emperors could handle it. How could a warrior of the Overlord realm make it through? Though Luli was injured, he was not dead. There was no other explanation other than the sacred mountain. They had heard about the defensive power of the mountain, so they all suspected that it was because of the mountain. No, it must be because the 4 of us are going together. Aochi suddenly came to his senses and shouted, "I can feel the divine patterns here. There is a divine pattern that can increase the power. Let's go together. The power of the divine pattern is stacked." "We can't go together?" Goen and Aochi's expressions became unnatural. They were not strong enough. It would be hard for them to go through. Since they were here, they naturally wanted to go to the innermost part. This was clearly the main burial ground. Otherwise, the divine patterns here would not be so horrifying. If they could get Emperor Yong's treasure, who wouldn't want to share? Especially Goen, he wanted to get something in there. "Let's try going separately?" Aoyu asked tentatively. Aoyun responded, "I'll go open the way first." After Aoyu's confirmation, Aoyun rushed forward by himself. He was stronger than Aochi and the others. He went to the first row and launched 2 attacks at once, which were dispersed by Aoyun. When Aoyun went to the second row of pillars, Aochi's eyes lit up. There's an increase. Whether it's the number of attacks or the power, there's a huge increase. You two, either rest here or follow me. A long night is fraught with trouble. I will go over first and take that punk down. Aoyu rushed forward. If he went alone, it would be much easier for them to go alone. Aoyu was confident that he would be fine, not to mention the other powerful warriors. "Master, wake up, wake up!" Blood Fairy sensed all this. She was anxious and kept sending messages to the faithful. When Aoyun went past the 6th row, Luli finally woke up. "What is going on?" Luli was still weak. He asked. Blood Fairy answered, "Master, they are catching up. But I need at least a few days to solve the problem. Think of a way." "What?" Luli flew out from the pond and landed under the tree. He used psychic power to check. Soon, he was worried. Blood Fairy, is there any way to stop them from moving forward? Can you change the divine patterns on the stone columns? No, Blood Fairy replied. The divine patterns on the stone columns are too strong. It is difficult to change. Master, you have to think of a way. Then don't worry about that. Focus on solving the door, Luli said. Blood Fairy flew out while Luli flew the holy mountain over slowly. Blood Fairy needed a few more days, which meant he must hold on for a few more days. Aou and the others were strong. He must think of a way to stop them. Luli took some pellets to restore his abilities. If push came to shove, he would use the purple divine liquid. By then, his soul would be many times stronger. When the several powerful warriors were at the last level, he could use formations. As long as he could distract them for a moment, he might be able to kill them directly. What? Luli thought of the purple divinity. Out of instinct, he checked the realm of magic. There were 3 drops of black liquid. Luli was surprised at first, but then he was overjoyed. Poisonous liquid? When Luli absorbed the toxic air from the prison of devils, he wondered if the Dharma realm would produce some drops of toxic liquid. He didn't expect that the Dharma realm did. Please remember the domain name of this book. Third Sect Leader's Mobile Version. Chapter 3062. Back in the infernal prison, Luli was helpless against the venom. If it were not for the realm of magic, he would have died. Back then, Luli wondered if the realm of magic was a melting pot. Could absorb all kinds of strange energy. Back then, he absorbed energy from the pond and made some drops of purple divine liquid. Now, he had made some drops of venom. Wait, Luli was taken aback. If this was venom, then how could he get it out? The energy in the realm of magic had to pass through his body. If this was venom, then wouldn't he be poisoned to death as soon as he came out of the realm of magic? Wrap it with source energy? Luli thought of an idea. He mobilized his source energy and tried to wrap a drop of venom. The wrapping went well. Luli made up his mind and mobilized the venom. Okay. The venom wrapped in source energy was mobilized and appeared in his hand. Since the venom was wrapped in source energy, it didn't seem to be a problem, just like regular source energy. Let's try it later. Luli controlled the holy mountain to stand 2 miles in front of the last row of pillars and waited quietly. He observed Aou in the distance and Aou behind him. What? Luli was surprised to find that the power of the divine patterns on Aou and Aou seemed to have increased. In other words, the divine patterns would be strengthened or weakened according to the realm of the warriors. Aou was only 6 rows of pillars away. The attacks from the divine patterns had become horrifying. Even Aou couldn't stand it anymore. It seemed that he could be injured at any moment. Goen and Aochi were on the move as well. Of course, they were after the treasures. They had a feeling that they could reach the main tomb of Emperor Yong in 1 or 2 more levels. There was an unspoken rule in the Crimson Dragon clan. Any treasure obtained by an elder would belong to them. Even a top-notch supreme divine artifact would belong to them. The experts of the clan would not fight for it. What was Aochi doing here? For one thing, it was Ao Ding's order. For another, he wanted to see what was inside. If he could get the halberd of Emperor Yong, then he would make a fortune. He was also a Saint Emperor, but this Saint Emperor was far inferior to Emperor Yong. He could also forge saint weapons, but the strength of a saint weapon was closely related to the strength of its master. Powerful saint emperors would condense their strongest laws onto their saint weapons. This saint weapon was actually the embodiment of a saint emperor's strongest attack. Yong Huang was an expert who was infinitely close to the Great Perfection realm. There weren't many experts at this level in each era. As for experts at the Great Perfection realm, there were at most 2 or 3 in each era. For example, in the entire Infinite region, there were only 3 perfected Heaven realm experts. One was the tribe leader of the desolate tribe, the other was the patriarch of the 33 large tribes, and the last was a reclusive expert. There were 33 major clans in Infinite Region, hundreds of strong clans, and hundreds of small clans. There were also many old demons and hidden experts. How many Saint Emperors were there in Infinite Region? No one was able to calculate the exact number, because there were too many old demons and powerhouses in seclusion. However, even if it wasn't 1,000, it was still at least 800. There were so many Saint Emperors, but there were only 3 experts at the Great Perfection Realm. This showed how difficult it was to reach the Great Perfection Realm, and experts who were infinitely close to it were also extremely rare. In this era, there were only a few dozen experts at the Great Perfection Realm in Infinite Region. Every one of them was famous and powerful. Yong Wang was such a powerful figure. Yong Wang wasn't from Infinite Region. He came from the outside and no one knew where he came from. After he came here, he once occupied an entire domain and dominated it for many years. He even fought with one of the 33 large tribes. In the end, that large tribe gave up. Because they couldn't kill Yong Wang could continuously assassinate their clansmen. Yong Wang didn't have any children and naturally didn't have a family. When he came here, he was already very old and died after staying here for tens of thousands of years. Yong Wang had a halberd, which was also one of the weapons that made him famous. This weapon was stained with the blood of dozens of Saint Emperors. Yong Wang's halberd was also recognized as one of the strongest saint weapons. Many experts had entered Yong Wang's tomb to explore. It was said that the main tomb had been broken open long ago. There were only a few places that were abnormally dangerous. Ordinary Saint Emperors would die if they went in, and powerful Saint Emperors would cause the area to collapse. Therefore, gradually, no more experts came to explore. Although it was said that Yong Wang's tomb had been broken open, the halberd of Yong Wang had never appeared. Now that everyone had entered, they realized that the sacred glyphs here were so complicated and powerful. Therefore, they suspected that this was the main tomb area. Did that mean that the halberd of Yong Wang was here? Gohan thought so too. If he got the halberd of Yong Wang, the Crimson Dragon tribe wouldn't dare to take it from him. Otherwise, they would become enemies with the Heavenly Dog tribe. The Heavenly Dog tribe and the Crimson Dragon tribe had always been allies. They wouldn't become enemies over a saint weapon. Moreover, the Heavenly Dog tribe had the ability to protect themselves. As long as they could get the halberd of Yong Wang, it wouldn't be easy for Aou and the others to kill him. Therefore, Gohan and Aochi followed one after the other. The 4 Saint Emperors formed a line. At this moment, Aoyun was only 4 rows of stone pillars away from Luli. Although he was injured, it seemed that he could make it. Aou was a little later than Aoyun, but he was only 2 rows away. Luli was ready to make a move as well. His target was Aoyun, waiting for Aoyun to reach the second to last row. By then, the sacred glyphs would be even fiercer and Aoyun wouldn't be able to fend for himself. Luli's attack could make things worse for Aoyun. Time moved on bit by bit. After the time for half an incense stick to burn, Aoyun reached the second row of stone pillars. There were more than 20 attacks here. Aoyun was already injured and this time, it would be more serious. Buzzing. Luli dashed out and attacked with the swords of soul that he had already formed. He also released spirit formations. At the same time, the Dharma form behind him came out and countless blades of origin energy poured toward Aoyun. 4 kinds of attacks. Either Luli didn't make a move or he released his most powerful attacks. He wanted to kill this powerful warrior of the Crimson Dragon tribe right away. Aoyun's expressions changed. The dozens of attacks here were enough to give him a headache. He thought that even if he could survive, he would be seriously injured. He didn't expect that Luli would make a move at this moment. Even though the attacks didn't seem to be very powerful, it would make things worse for him. Bastard, how dare you! Ao-yun, on the other hand, was enraged. He yelled, "How dare you do this? Believe it or not, we will go over and skin you." Idiot! Lu Li rolled his eyes and said, "You are a famous powerful warrior in the Infinite Star region, right? How can you be so stupid? Do you think this threat will work? Maybe I won't make a move. Are you going to kneel down to me and call me Grandpa?" Ao-yu was enraged. He was about to roar when Ao-yun suddenly let out a miserable cry. Ao-yu, Goen, and Ao-ding looked over and saw that Ao-yun was minced up by the sacred glyph. Broken limbs were flying around. He was killed. Please remember this book's original domain name. Third Sect Leader's mobile version. Chapter 3063. Silence. The entire place suddenly became exceptionally silent. Although Ao-yun's combat strength was not particularly strong, he was still a top figure in Infinite Region and was one of the top elders in the Red Dragon tribe. They all sensed the divine pattern attack just now. Ao-yun should be able to survive it. But how come he was killed by Lu Li's attack? He was killed in an instant. Ao-yu could not figure it out. Ao-chi and Goen were even more confused. There was nothing special about Lu Li's attack. There were only two types of soul attacks, one type of Dharma manifestation and some attacks of origin energy. How strong could a warrior of the Great Emperor's soul attack be? They could feel the power of Dharma manifestation, not to mention the attacks of origin energy. Therefore, Ao-yu, Goen and Ao-chi could not figure it out. It was because of this that the place became so quiet. Boom, boom, boom. The attack of the divine glyphs alarmed the three of them. Ao-yu and the other two quickly used skills to defend against the attack. At the same time, they used psychic power to check the place where Ao-yun died and then to Lu Li. They were confused. That is impressive. Lu Li was the only one who knew how Ao-yun died. His attacks were not of much use. Not even the spiritual formations had much effect on Ao-yun. The real reason for Ao-yun's death was that drop of poisonous liquid. When Lu Li released the attack of origin energy, he contained that drop of poisonous liquid. Ao-yun was busy defending against the divine pattern attack and Lu Li's soul attack. Therefore, Ao-yun almost ignored Lu Li's Dharma manifestation and origin energy attack. He only used one attack to shatter Lu Li's Dharma manifestation and ignored the other attacks of origin energy. That drop of highly toxic liquid easily hit Ao-yun's head, and then it quickly entered his brain. After that, Ao-yun's body stopped moving and finally, he was strangled by the divine rune. What was the effect of the poisonous liquid? Lu Li did not know what kind of damage it had done to Ao-yun. He only knew that Ao-yun could have withstood the attack of the divine pattern. But because of the poisonous liquid, he did not move at that moment, nor did he defend against the divine pattern attack. Therefore, he was killed by the divine pattern attack. The poisonous liquid is strong, very strong. Lu Li was excited. The only pity was that there were only 3 drops of the poisonous liquid. If there were dozens, he would not be afraid even if dozens of Saint Emperors came. "Little thief, you're dead, you're dead," Ao-yu shouted again after a while. Anyhow, Ao-yun's death had something to do with Lu Li. How could Lu Li kill a powerful patriarch of the Red Dragon race? The more he thought about it, the angrier he got. After a pause, he roared, "No one in the world can save you. You will become the enemy of the Crimson Dragon race, and we will not rest until you die." Idiot, Lu Li touched his forehead. "You have lived for hundreds of thousands of years. How can you still be so childish? If I didn't kill him, your race would still hunt me down. Since your race wants to hunt me down, what's wrong with me killing your race's experts? Stop shouting. I'm standing right here. You can kill me immediately if you come over." Ao-yu was mad. His eyes were red as he rushed forward crazily. He didn't believe that Lu Li could kill him. Even 100,000 years ago, A puny emperor ranked was nothing more than an ant, let alone the current him. Over the years, Aou had never thought much of any emperor-ranked warriors. Now, there was an emperor-ranked warrior, a warrior that had just reached that level not long ago. A bumpkin from a remote place not only killed a patriarch of his race but also humiliated him? This was an unprecedented humiliation. He flew on and sped up to pass the level. Luli was excited. As long as he could kill this powerful warrior, then the other two would not be a threat. Patriarch Aou. Aochi had been checking where Aoyun died. All of a sudden, he said, "Calm down. Take a closer look at Aoyun's head." Aou looked over and his pupils contracted. He saw a hole on one side of Aou's head. The hole was corroded and it was still corroding. What? Aou was shocked. He finally understood how Aoyun died. Aou was poisoned. What they didn't understand was when Luli poisoned Aoyun. Was Luli a master of poisons? If so, Aou would not be able to survive. Go back now. Aou was shocked to see how calm Luli was. Was Luli trying to provoke him on purpose? Was Luli trying to lure him over and then kill him with poison? Go back. Aou thought about it. It was dangerous to go over now, but he was not in a hurry. Luli could not run away either. He had to go back and think of a way. He could attack when he had a surefire plan. Aou turned around and stepped back. It was difficult to move forward, but it was easier to go back. The power was reduced. Ao Ding and Goen stepped back as well. In the time for half an incense stick to burn, they were back. Ha ha! Luli sneered. Old fool of the Red Dragon race, weren't you so arrogant just now? Don't you want to kill me? Now you are scared? Is this the best you can do? Have you been living like a dog all these years? Aou flew into a rage. He was trembling with anger. How many years had it been since someone talked to him like this? Not even patriarchs of enemy races dared to humiliate him like this. Calm down. Aochi looked at Aou emotionlessly and said, Patriarch Aou, you are not yourself today. Why are you so easily angered? If you were a warrior of the same level, you would have been killed. Aou's expression became a little embarrassed, but he was a smart man after all, so he quickly calmed down. He realized that he was not himself. Maybe it was because Ao Ding was giving him too much pressure after such a long time. Maybe it was because Luli was too young and his rank was too low, which made Aou angry. Or maybe it was because he did not know how to explain to Ao Ding about Aoyun's death. Aou sat with his legs crossed, closed his eyes and began to think. He must calm down enough so that he could find a way to kill Luli as soon as possible and wash away the humiliation. Aochi and Goen began to think as well. Luli was not worried. He needed time to wait for Blood Fairy to crack the divine rune. But after he cracked the divine rune, should he go in right away or what? He could not make up his mind. If he went in right away, Aou and the others would come right away. They would be there in the time for a few incense sticks to burn. In such a short time, Blood Fairy would not be able to lay the divine rune on the door. They would catch up soon. Who could tell if the next level would be such a good place? How could Luli defeat Aou on his own? If he did not go in, was he going to be in a stalemate with them? What if the Crimson Dragon clan sent even stronger reinforcements? What should he do then? For a moment, Luli was at a loss. He thought for a moment and decided to wait until the door was opened. He would see what was inside before making a decision. Soon, 5 days passed. Aou and the others had not found any solution. There were no blind spots or shortcuts. They must go through the divine runes. The divine runes here were highly targeted. The runes would grow with the warrior's strength. If there were more warriors, the runes would be more powerful. Therefore, there was no way to take advantage of the situation. They had to go through. However, Luli was able to hold the mountain pass alone. He had something poisonous that even Aoyun couldn't withstand and died instantly. Then, they certainly wouldn't be able to either. Master, it's open. More than 2 hours later, Blood Fairy's voice rang out, and the door opened without a sound. Please remember the domain name of this book. Third Sect Leader's mobile version. Chapter 3064. Finally, the door was opened. Luli did not feel happy. He did not move. After some thoughts, he said, Blood Fairy, go in and have a look. See what is inside. Do not be rash if there is danger. Okay. Blood Fairy went in. Luli stood there coldly, gazing at Aou and the others in the distance. Aou and the others noticed that the door was open as well. They were surprised and delighted. They were surprised because Luli did not do anything. He did not see Aou decipher the runes. Why was the door open? They were delighted because Luli was going to go in. Aou and Aou could follow him. It was unlikely that the next level would be like this and Luli could take advantage of it. What? The thief is not moving? Aou, Goen and Aochi looked at each other, confused. The door was open. Why would Luli not go in and have a look? What if there were treasures or a way to escape? After the time it takes for an incense stick to burn, Blood Fairy finally replied, Master, there is a huge palace inside. There is a huge golden coffin and some treasures. There is also a corridor and a teleportation altar. There are some terrifying runes in the hall as well, more so than here. I need to find out what they are. Blood Fairy's message was too much. Luli was taken aback. At first, he was delighted, but then he put on a solemn face. There was a golden coffin, which meant that he had reached the real tomb. There were also treasures, which must be left behind by the tomb owner. The corridor and the altar meant that there was a way out. The altar, in particular, might be able to teleport out. Were there powerful runes in there? This was a headache. If he was trapped by the runes as soon as he went in, then Aou and the others could kill him easily. All the treasures would belong to Aou and the others. What to do? For a moment, Luli was confused. He thought for the time for 2 incense stick to burn before he said, Blood Fairy, go and check the runes. Make sure that I can go directly to the altar after I go in. As long as I can reach the altar, the rest will not be a problem. Luli did not care about treasures. What was the point of treasures when he was dead? All he wanted was to escape. If he could reach the teleportation altar, he would be able to teleport out. Then, he fled as fast as he could. Now that he had the divine transfiguration art, he could change his appearance and aura at will. There were so many races in the Yin and Yang world. How could the Crimson Dragon race find him in the sea of people? Nothing else mattered but the path of retreat. First, he had to ensure his own safety. If he could take anything else, then he would. If he couldn't, then it didn't matter. This was Luli's strategy. Alright. Blood Fairy went to check. Luli took out the holy mountain and continued to cultivate under the tree. The sacred mountain stood there like a natural moat, blocking the path of Aou and the others. Since Luli didn't leave, Aou and the others didn't dare to force their way in. They had to wait. This time, Luli did not have to wait for long. An hour later, Blood Fairy said, Master, the way to the teleportation altar and that corridor are safe. Only the way to the golden coffin and the platform with the treasures are marked with powerful patterns. Luli was overjoyed. As long as the way out was safe, he could advance or retreat at will. After some thoughts, he decided to leave. Staying here was not a solution. He could not stay here for the rest of his life. The Red Dragon race had so many powerful warriors. If they could send 3, then they could send more powerful ones later. Now that he had killed Aou, he had become the archenemy of the Red Dragon race. Let's go. Luli made up his mind. He flew the holy mountain into the gate in a blur. After a white glare, he arrived at a huge hall, one that was even more magnificent than the one he had seen before. He took a casual look and ordered, Blood Fairy, close the door at the back. Try to build some patterns to delay the enemies from coming in. Okay. Blood Fairy went to do it. Luli began to take a closer look at the hall. The first impression he got from this hall was that it was a royal palace, a hall where a king resided. It was majestic and magnificent. In the middle of the hall was a huge coffin with dragons and phoenixes carved on it. The coffin glowed in a golden light. The coffin must be the body of the tomb owner. There were 3 high platforms behind the ancient coffin. There were stone stairs leading up to each of the 3 platforms, and there were treasures on top of each platform. On the first platform was an armor. This armor was different from the average ones. It seemed to be a part of the armor. It did not seem to be forged, but existed naturally. The armor was glistening. It was simple and unadorned, making people feel comfortable. On the second platform was a beautiful black ring. On the ring, Luli could see the character, Yong. This ring did not look like an interspatial ring. Luli wondered what it could be used for. Luli's attention was attracted by the third piece of treasure. It was a halberd. At one glance, Luli found it hard to move his eyes away. The halberd was beautiful and domineering. The faint smell of blood from the halberd made Luli's heart palpitate. A piece of treasure. Luli had an urge. He had to get this halberd. It was definitely the most powerful weapon he had ever seen, second to none. The halberd gave him the feeling that it was a weapon that had been through hundreds of battles, stained with the blood of many powerful warriors. The energy in the halberd made his blood boil. He was like a bandit who had stayed in the mountains for more than a decade and suddenly saw a charming girl. That kind of attraction could arouse the deepest desire in his heart. I must get this halberd. I must. Luli told himself. This feeling was too strong. It was as if he had seen dragon blood for the first time. At the moment, an idea came to his mind. He must get this halberd at all costs, even at the cost of his life. The idea did not make any sense, but it was real. Luli took a deep breath and forced himself to close his eyes. Blood Fairy said that there were 3 platforms in the direction of the coffin. All of them were engraved with divine patterns. As a matter of fact, Luli did not need Blood Fairy to tell him that the 4 places were dangerous. Every step was filled with danger. Reason told Luli not to try to get the 3 treasures. He might lose his life. However, his heart was filled with desire, especially for the halberd, which came from the deepest part of his soul. Therefore, Luli refrained himself from looking at it. He would wait for Blood Fairy to finish setting up the divine patterns and then go in to have a closer look. If Blood Fairy could not solve it and she was sure that this place was dangerous, then he would have to give up his treasure. Treasures were important, but life was even more important. Treasures were only part of the enhancement. Abilities could be cultivated and there was still a chance to acquire more treasures in the future. That being said, without life, treasures would be of no use. This time, Blood Fairy spent 3 days working on it. It was not that her work was complicated. It was because Aochi and the others had arrived and started to crack the door. Actually, Blood Fairy was fighting with Aochi. One was setting up the door while the other was cracking it. Master. A day later, Blood Fairy replied, the expert outside is stronger than me when it comes to divine inscription formations. I need less time to decipher them, but I won't be able to delay him for too long. He will be able to solve it in 6 hours at most. We must leave as soon as possible. 6 hours. That is enough. Luli's eyes glowed. We have 5 hours. Blood Fairy, try and see if you can get that halberd for me. If you cannot do so in 5 hours, we will leave. Please remember the domain name of this book. Third Sect Leader's Mobile Version. Chapter 3065. 4 hours later, Luli decided to leave at once, regardless of whether he could take down Emperor Yong's halberd or not. He told Blood Fairy to check, and only check the platform where Emperor Yong's halberd was. He did not have the time to take the other 2 items. Blood Fairy went to check as soon as she could. Luli waited quietly. At the same time, he consumed the elixirs to restore his body to its peak state. Before, his body was not fully recovered. Blood Fairy went to check as fast as she could. Luli waited anxiously. Soon 2 hours passed. Still, there was no message from Blood Fairy. Another hour passed by. Luli was getting more and more anxious. There were only 2 hours left. If he were to be stopped halfway, there would be no way out for him to go to heaven or hell. Another half an hour later, Blood Fairy finally sent back a message. Master, I've scouted the platform. It's very dangerous. There are a total of 4 divine glyphs. One is a gravity glyph, another is a killing glyph, and the last one is a soul attack glyph. The last one is an unknown one. I cannot find out the specific function. I suggest you don't go. You might be trapped by the pattern of gravity even if you take the holy mountain. Luli said nothing. Blood Fairy's advice was objective. That being said, Luli's desire was strong. He looked up at the platform and made up his mind. Either way, I have to try. If I don't try, I will not be able to accept this. Blood Fairy, get ready to crack the formation, Luli said. If I am trapped, find a way to crack the pattern of gravity. The platform of Emperor Yong's halberd was not far away from the teleportation altar. As long as the pattern of gravity could be cracked, Luli could reach the teleportation altar in an instant. Okay. Blood Fairy would not have any doubts about Luli's decision. She snuck into the platform and began to figure out a way to crack the pattern of gravity. Luli went into the holy mountain. Without any hesitation, he flew the holy mountain toward the platform. At the bottom of the platform, Luli slowed down. He flew the holy mountain to the first stair. At that moment, the entire platform lit up. Then, a surge of horrifying energy spread out. An invisible force came down. The holy mountain was pressed down and fell onto the stairs. Impressive. Luli controlled the holy mountain to fly, but it could not move at all. The Saint Mountain was a place that not even a Saint Emperor's attack could push back. Now, it was suppressed to the point where it couldn't move. One could only imagine how powerful this power was. There's no other way. Luli had to teleport out and put away the holy mountain. Before he could do anything, a force of gravity pressed down on him. His legs went soft and then he fell flat on his face. His whole body was stuck to the ground and he was prostrating. This power, Luli was taken aback. This was only the first stair. There were 18 more. How horrifying would it be? Not only that, there were other powerful attack-type divine imprints on it. Was he sure he could block them? Let's risk it, Luli bellowed. He released the dragon transformation and dragon transformation. His body grew stronger. He growled and climbed up slowly against the strong gravity. Sure. Luli raised his head and looked up at the stairs. He climbed up on all fours. The gravity on the second stair was a bit stronger, but not by much. Luli was overjoyed. He had the purple divine liquid. After he consumed it, his body would be strengthened. Maybe he could stand the gravity. Move! Luli shouted and rushed towards the third stone stair. The gravity on the third stair was stronger. Even though Luli could stand it, his muscles were trembling and he was sweating profusely. The fourth stair, the fifth. Luli's hands and feet trembled. Once again, he lay on the ground, gasping for air. He was exhausted. He took out a pellet and rested for a moment before he resumed his climb. Buzzing. When he reached the sixth stair, the divine imprints on the platform glowed. Chi in heaven and earth gathered on the platform and transformed into swords that were shot at Luli. Such a powerful attack. Luli sensed it and was taken aback. He released his Dharma form at once and at the same time, he took out his divine chains of order. The Dharma form and the swords collided and cracked. The divine chains of order, on the other hand, knocked away more than a dozen swords. The other swords actually moved in an arc and quickly struck Luli's shield of origin power. Boom! The shield of origin energy was shattered at once. Then the swords made of origin energy landed on Luli. Many scales on Luli's body were crushed. Seeing that there were more swords coming at him, Luli made up his mind and rolled down the stairs. On the 5th stair, the divine imprints disappeared. Luli reacted quickly so he didn't suffer serious injuries. He only lost more than a dozen scales. What should I do? Luli took a pellet and began to think. The door was about to be opened. He still had a chance to leave now. If he waited for Aou and the others to come in, it would be difficult for him to leave. Let's try again. Luli made up his mind and yelled. He continued to climb up. This time, he risked his life. As soon as he got up, he rolled over. Then, regardless of the attacks coming at him, he climbed up quickly. Boom, 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 boom. Luli was hit by dozens of attacks. Many scales were broken. There were several sieves on his body and he was bleeding. Fortunately, the 7th stair was not dangerous. That being said, the gravity was stronger. Luli lay on his stomach, motionless, like a dead dog. After the time for one incense stick to burn, Luli took out a pellet and closed his eyes to heal again. He felt bitter. It seemed that he could not get the halberd of Emperor Yong. He was only at the 7th stair. There were 11 more to go. Who knew what was up there? Let's go, let's go. Luli decided to leave after some thoughts. The halberd of Emperor Yong was a treasure, but it did not belong to him. Or, he could not get it. Emperor Yong must have thought about it. How could he give his halberd to a warrior of the divine realm? Let's go. Luli took a moment to heal his wounds. He rolled down quickly. This time, he was fast but he was hit by more than a dozen attacks. He had no time to rest. He rolled all the way down the stair. After consuming 3 pellets, Luli climbed up and walked toward the teleportation formation. At the same time, he said to Blood Fairy, don't break the formation. Come on, let's get out of here. Blood Fairy dashed over in a blur toward the teleportation altar. Luli entered the teleportation altar as well. He looked at the gate in the distance and then at the halberd of Emperor Yong on the platform. He made up his mind and said, "Open the altar. Let's go." What? A moment later, the teleportation altar did not glow as he had expected. He looked down in surprise. Blood Fairy said, "Master, this is bad. I have been careless. The altar is sealed by a hidden pattern. To open it, we must crack the pattern first. It will take at least 4 to 6 hours. Oh no! Luli was taken aback. It had been a long time. The gate was about to be opened and Aou and the others would come in. How could Blood Fairy make such a mistake at this critical moment? Please remember the domain name of this book. Third Sect Leader's mobile version. Chapter 3066. Actually, Blood Fairy couldn't be blamed for this. She had been in a rush and hadn't had the time to examine the divine inscriptions. The divine inscriptions were hidden, and she hadn't noticed them until she had opened them. She hadn't discovered the divine inscriptions. Blood Fairy said that she could only hold on for 6 hours, but it had been more than 4 hours. The seal would take 4 to 6 hours to open. Luli could not make it in time. Luli forced himself to calm down. He realized that there were only 2 options. 1, he could let the sacred mountain cover the altar and let Blood Fairy crack the seal. In that case, he would have to rely on the sacred mountain to hold on for 4 to 6 hours. If the sacred mountain was not blasted open during that time, he would have a chance to escape. Just because he had a chance to escape did not mean that he would be completely safe. His enemies would be teleported out as well, and they would continue to hunt him down. The other option was to take the corridor. Clearly, the corridor was an exit as well. But he did not know where it led to or what dangers awaited him. Theoretically speaking, this was where the tomb owner's body was. This should be the deepest part of the tomb. Why was there a corridor? Where was it leading to? Could it be that there was a tomb inside? Luli asked, Blood Fairy, are there any divine patterns in this corridor? Where does it lead to? There are no divine patterns in this corridor. Blood Fairy answered, I don't know. I don't have time to find out. Go and have a look now. Luli waved his hand. Maybe this corridor was a way out. What if there was an altar inside? Luli did not think about treasures. The most powerful ones were here. Also, the three most powerful ones were here. When his pursuers arrived, they would come for the treasures and they would not have time to worry about him. Could he run away from the corridor? Blood Fairy hurried into the corridor and returned after the time it took for an incense stick to burn. She transmitted her voice back. Master, this corridor is very long, and there are divine inscriptions all over it. However, it's an illusory realm, and it's very powerful. Illusion? Luli was surprised. It was strange enough that there was a corridor here. How could there be illusions in the corridor? This made him very bewildered. He had been to many tombs, such as the tomb of the Dragon King, the tomb of the Moon God, and the tomb of Emperor Kuan. According to common sense, the main hall where the tomb owner resided was the core area. The core region usually didn't have any passageways because the most important treasures were all here. If there was a door, it would be the exit. But here, there was a corridor, and there was an illusion in the corridor? This was too strange. Go! Luli was not an indecisive man. He did not have much confidence in waiting here and relying on the defense of the Holy Mountain. Aoyu was strong and Aochi was proficient in divine glyphs, even stronger than Blood Fairy. If he could crack the sacred mountain's runes, then Luli would be squashed to death like an ant. There were 3 treasures here, and they were all precious treasures. When the pursuers caught up to him, they would definitely think of taking the treasures first, and not think of chasing him in the corridor. Shio! The sacred mountain flew into the corridor in a blur. After more than 1,000 feet, Luli noticed there was a thick black haze. The sacred mountain was swallowed up by the black haze as soon as it flew in. In the time for 3 incense sticks to burn after Luli went into the black haze, the door of the hall was opened quietly. 3 people rushed in. Aoyu took the lead, Goen followed closely behind, and Aochi brought up the rear. As soon as the 3 came in, they looked for Luli. When they did not see him, they were attracted by the coffin and then the halberd of Emperor Yong. Well, the 3 powerful warriors' eyes were filled with excitement. At this moment, they had forgotten about Luli and everything else. They were all staring at the halberd of Emperor Yong like hungry wolves staring at a lamb. Aoyu wanted to rush to the platform and take the halberd of Emperor Yong. But he stopped himself. He saw the blood stains on the stairs and the scales that fell off. What? Aoyu followed the trail of blood and noticed it was dripping toward the teleportation altar. Aoyu shouted, "That punk tried to take the halberd of Emperor Yong. Did he teleport away when he failed?" Aochi took a look and nodded. "That is possible. Patriarch Aoyu, should we go after him? Cauldron Emperor will not be happy if he escapes." Aochi's intention was clear. He wanted Aoyu to go after Luli and then he would find a way to get the halberd of Emperor Yong. Cauldron Emperor only told him to cooperate with Aoyu to take down Luli. Now that Luli had left the tomb of Emperor Yong, Aochi didn't want to do anything. Aochi was skilled in divine inscriptions, but he was not as strong as Aoyu. Naturally, he was tempted by the halberd of Emperor Yong. "Yes," Goen added, "Patriarch Aoyu, that punk just got away and he is injured. If we go after him now, we can take him down easily. You go after him and I will check the platform." Whoosh! With that said, Goen rushed toward the platform where the halberd of Emperor Yong was. He was here to help. Even though Luli had killed some of the Heaven Hound race, it was not a big deal. Compared to the halberd of Emperor Yong, it was not enough. A glint of coldness rose in Aoyu's eyes. He almost killed Goen. As far as Aoyu was concerned, the halberd of Emperor Yong was his. Now, Goen was snatching food from the tiger's mouth. How could he not be angry? He was about to rush over and take the halberd of Emperor Yong when Aochi said, "Patriarch Aou, don't worry. He cannot get up there. I found some powerful divine inscriptions on the platform. I don't think he can get up there." "What if he gets up there?" Aou asked. "What if he gets the halberd of Emperor Yong? We cannot take the risk." "Kill him if we get him," Aochi snorted. "We can kill Goen here without anyone knowing. The Heaven Hound race has no proof. What else can they say? What is more, we can frame him for taking the halberd of Emperor Yong from us." "Okay." Aou nodded and said, "Aochi, go after that human bastard. I must get the halberd of Emperor Yong." "If I go after him, you cannot get the halberd of Emperor Yong." Aochi shook his head. "There are at least 4 divine inscriptions on the platform. Emperor Yong will not let anyone get his relic weapon easily. Only those divine inscriptions can get up there. The divine inscriptions here must have affected the entire graveyard. I don't think you can do it." Aochi's reason was fair and just. Aou could not argue with him. He was worried as well. What if he could not get the halberd? At the moment, Aou and Aochi's attention was on the halberd of Emperor Yong. Neither of them had time to think about Luli. If Luli could not get the halberd, the Cauldron Emperor would be furious. But so what? The Cauldron Emperor would not kill them. If they didn't go after Luli, they would be fine. At worst, they would be scolded. But what about getting the halberd of Emperor Yong? That would increase their strength, especially for Aou. If he could get the halberd of Emperor Yong, he would be among the top 10 of the Red Dragon race. By then, he would gain fame in the entire barren universe and all kinds of benefits would come to him. Then let's wait. Aou made up his mind. If Goen can get the halberd of Emperor Yong, we will kill him together. If not, we will work together to get the halberd of Emperor Yong. You can name your terms. I only want the halberd of Emperor Yong. Please remember the domain name of this book. Third Sect Leader's mobile version. Chapter 3067. Buzzing from the hall with many stone pillars, a group of people rushed out. At the front was Lady Li. Lady Li and the others ran all the way here. They didn't have to solve the sacred glyphs along the way, and there were so many powerful warriors. Therefore, they arrived here easily. But in the maze, many powerful warriors were scattered. Only a dozen or so Saint Emperors had come in. Lady Li was the reason why they could solve the maze. She had a treasure given to her by Ancestor Fu. With this treasure, she found the way in. There was a fight here. A Saint Emperor came in, looked around and said, "A powerful warrior died there." Lady Li and the others nodded. A Saint Emperor died and he died miserably. Be careful, it is dangerous here. The powerful warriors grew solemn. Saint Emperors were hard to kill, not to mention that Aou was a famous one. How could a Saint Emperor be killed when Aou was here? He died miserably. The powerful warriors had to pay more attention. Let me have a look. The diamond mark between Lady Li's eyebrows glowed. Many images appeared in her eyes. Soon, her eyes were filled with shock and she murmured in disbelief. It was actually that human brat who killed Aou. How is that possible? Many powerful warriors shouted. Luli was only at the Emperor realm. For them, he was a nonentity. Lady Li was telling them that a nonentity killed a dragon? How could they believe this? Let's go, but we must go through one by one. Lady Li waved her hand. I can feel their energy. They just left not long ago. They might be in 1 or 2 halls up ahead. Remember, we can only go through one by one. If there are too many of us, the power of the sacred glyphs will be doubled. Whoosh! Miss Li took the lead. Her battle prowess might not be particularly strong, but she definitely had the most treasures on her. This was because she was a junior that Ancestor Fu was extremely fond of and highly regarded. Naturally, he would not allow anything to happen to her. Boom, 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 boom. Miss Li charged forward in a very violent manner. A fiery red battle armor appeared on her body. This battle armor was personally refined by Fu Zhu. It was also engraved with several powerful defensive nomological true meanings. This greatly increased the defensive power of the battle armor. In one breath, Miss Li rushed through 7 or 8 levels, but she was not injured at all. However, she was injured at the back. When she rushed through, there was only a little blood at the corner of her mouth. Her defense was terrifyingly strong. Xiao. 2 mighty figures from the desolate race charged over from behind. The 2 of them were injured, and they were in a worse state than Miss Li. Miss Li was not in a hurry to enter the gate. Instead, she waited for the experts behind her to pass through one by one. The dozen or so experts were all very strong. Only 2 of them could not withstand it and retreated. Let's not wait for them. Let's go. Miss Li took the lead and walked towards the door. The door was closed, but it opened with a gentle push from Miss Li. There wasn't enough time to reactivate the divine runes inside, so Miss Li and the others easily entered. Inside, Aou and Aochi were still standing below the platform. They were waiting for Goen to take Emperor Yang's halberd or retreat. At this moment, Goen had only climbed 14 stone steps. The 3 experts noticed a powerful aura behind them. They immediately turned their heads and saw more than a dozen Saint Emperors. Their expressions changed drastically. Desolate race? Miss Li. Especially after seeing Miss Li, Aou's expression turned even more unnatural. Miss Li and the 2 Saint Emperors were not considered strong, but they were from the desolate race, especially with Miss Li's esteemed status. If anyone dared to kill her, the desolate race would definitely be enraged. The Scarlet Dragon race might even be destroyed. Emperor Yang's halberd. The Saint Emperors that came in did not look at Aou and company. Their eyes were all attracted by Emperor Yang's halberd. Other than Miss Li, all the Saint Emperor's eyes were burning. This was one of the strongest sacred weapons in the world. Aou's eyes darted around a few times. When he saw the burning gazes of the Saint Emperors, his heart stirred. He immediately transmitted his voice to Aochi and Goen. Let's retreat. Don't fight for Emperor Yang's halberd, or we will become a target. Let's retreat to the side. We're not fighting? Aochi was somewhat reluctant. He transmitted back. This group of Saint Emperors are not considered strong. If we go all out, we still have a chance. No chance. Aou shook his head and transmitted back. With the 3 desolate race Saint Emperors here, unless we dare to kill them, we have no chance. It's not that we are not fighting, but we should wait and see. Let those Saint Emperors fight for a while. Understood. Aochi immediately understood. Those Saint Emperors were not from the same race. Although they were all from the yin-yang world, they were not on good terms. Let them fight each other for a while, then they could fish in troubled waters. Aou led Aochi to the side, but Goen was reluctant. He had already come so far, so how could he retreat? As long as he obtained Emperor Yang's halberd, he could think of a way to escape. Aou and Aochi's retreat was seen by Miss Li. The other Saint Emperors also came to their senses. One of the Saint Emperors immediately shouted, Aou, Goen, what is the meaning of this? This is the yin-yang world. You have openly violated the agreement and entered. Are you treating the desolate race and us as nothing? Emperor Yang's tomb is in the yin-yang world, so the treasures here belong to us. If you dare snatch it, you will be making an enemy out of all our races. This Saint Emperor was very good with his words, dragging the desolate race into this. Later on, he said that the treasures here belong to the races of the yin-yang world, implying that the desolate race could not fight for it. His words implied that he wanted Emperor Yang's halberd. Heh heh. Aou smiled lightly. Yen Yu, we are not here to snatch the treasures, but to kill an enemy. This Emperor Yong's halberd is yours. My scarlet dragon race will definitely not snatch any of the treasures inside. After this matter is over, my race will give you a satisfactory explanation. Aou was also a very smart person. He reduced the matter to a small one, indicating that he would not be fighting for Emperor Yong's halberd. Goen, aren't you coming down? A group of Saint Emperors looked at Goen because he was still climbing up. Goen completely ignored them as he climbed up with all his might. The Saint Emperor was immediately enraged. He cupped his hands at Miss Li and said, Miss Li, you can see it for yourself. We are not trying to stir up trouble, but Goen is going too far. If he does not stop, we will have no choice but to take action. Miss Li's face turned gloomy. She was here representing the desolate race. Now that Goen was treating her like nothing, it was equivalent to looking down on the desolate race. How could she have a good expression? She paused for a moment as a token appeared in her hand. On it was written a large, desolate word. Her pleasant voice sounded. Elder Goen, I am here representing the desolate race. Please retreat immediately, or else I will not be able to stop them. When that happens, your Tiango race will also be implicated. Ha ha ha! Goen desperately climbed up another 2-stone step. He was now at the 16th stone step. Just as he was about to reach the top, how could he give up? He laughed loudly and turned his head to say, I, Goen, have long been expelled from the Tiango race. I have nothing to do with the Tiango race now. Since I am not from the Tiango race, why can't I enter the Yin-Yang world? The saint weapon has a spirit, and only the virtuous can use it. If you want to snatch it, just say it. Why do you have to pretend? Courting death. One of the Saint Emperors could no longer hold it in as he charged up the stage. The other Saint Emperors naturally did not want to be outdone. They also charged up and released all sorts of attacks at Goen before they even got close. Sigh, Miss Li sighed softly. She did not stop them or say a word. Goen was already so shameless to say that he was no longer from the Tiango race. What else did she have to say? Since Goen was courting death, she could not be blamed. She had already taken out her seal stone and recorded what had happened. Even if the Tiango race created a ruckus after this, the Tiango race would not be able to say anything if she took out the seal stone. Please remember this book's domain name. Third Sect Masters Mobile Version. Chapter 3068. The attacks of the Saint Emperors slammed into the platform, causing Goen's countenance to drastically change. Just as he was about to defend and evade, the platform suddenly lit up with a bright light as a barrier of light enveloped the entire platform. Boom, 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 boom. Over a dozen powerful attacks slammed into the divine inscription, causing it to tremble violently. The entire hall lit up, as though the entire hall was trembling. The divine inscription on the platform is connected to the grand formation of the entire graveyard. The expressions of the experts all changed. Although the barrier of light was trembling violently, it didn't show any signs of breaking. Since so many experts couldn't break it, it was impossible for them to kill Goen from below the platform. They could only go up and attack Goen. The problem was that Goen wasn't a weakling. At this moment, he couldn't even stand straight on the platform, and could only crawl like a dog. Their combat prowess wasn't much stronger than Goen, so they could only crawl. They were below the platform, while Goen was on top. They had no way to attack Goen, and by the time they were halfway up, Goen would have already seized the halberd. Go! One of the Saint Emperors roared as he took the lead to rush up. The moment he reached the first step, his body trembled and he almost knelt down. However, this Saint Emperor's combat prowess wasn't bad, and he managed to endure it with great difficulty. The other Saint Emperors immediately followed, and when two Saint Emperors stepped onto the first step, They were instantly immobilized by the immense gravitational force. One of the Saint Emperors exclaimed, "We have to go up one by one, not all at once. The power of the divine inscription will stack." Of the two Saint Emperors, one retreated, causing the gravitational force to lessen. The remaining Saint Emperors could only climb up one by one. A total of 6 Saint Emperors climbed up, while the remaining Saint Emperors split up to the other 2 platforms. As for the other 2 platforms, one was a beautiful battle armor. This was the famed Young Emperor's armor, a top-grade defensive divine artifact. The other ring was the Young Emperor's ring. This ring was a sole defensive divine artifact, and was the reason why Young Emperor was famous. The Young Emperor's halberd was the strongest, and also what all the Saint Emperors wanted. However, that platform could only be ascended one by one. So many Saint Emperors had already climbed up. What were the other Saint Emperors going for? To eat the dust? Aochi was a little anxious. With so many Saint Emperors going up, Sovereign Yong's halberd would definitely be taken down. At that time, things would become troublesome. The other 2 Saint weapons were also very powerful, but they could only watch helplessly as others snatched them away. Don't panic. At this moment, Aoyu was very calm. He transmitted his voice. If the situation doesn't become chaotic, we won't have any chance. If we act recklessly, not only will something happen, we will also implicate the race. Let's wait and find the most suitable opportunity to make our move. Also, didn't you say that there were very strong divine imprints on it? They might not be able to take it, right? Let's see. Aoyu sighed. At this moment, the 2 powerful warriors paid no more attention to Luli. They had even forgotten about Luli. All they could focus on was the halberd of Sovereign Yong. Luli was still in the corridor, which was protected by a powerful formation of illusion. Luli flew the holy mountain forward, but he felt the corridor was endless. He could never reach the end. According to common sense, the corridor was straight and not big. Even if there was a strong illusion inside, as long as he flew forward, he would definitely reach the end. Because if he flew in any other direction, he would hit the wall. If he flew backward, he would be able to go back to the hall. The divine imprints in this corridor were miraculous. Even when Luli used the trace of Tao to sense, he still felt he was in a boundless void. There was nothing here, and it was frighteningly dark. Luli tried to fly to the left and right, but he did not hit the wall. He felt he was in a void. He had lost his sense of direction and was lost in the void. 2 hours later, Luli stopped. Behind the holy mountain, the speed had increased. At this speed, he must have flown for tens of millions of miles. He could not fly in a straight line. Blood Fairy, go and have a look. Luli stopped. It was pointless to go forward. He might as well let Blood Fairy solve the divine imprint. Otherwise, he did not know when he could get out of this place. Blood Fairy went to check. A moment later, she said, "Master, we are still in the corridor. We haven't gone far, only a mile. The formation of illusion here is miraculous." "It is miraculous." Luli nodded. It was miraculous. He had been flying the holy mountain in a straight line. He felt he had flown for at least tens of millions of miles. But now, he realized he had only flown for a mile. This did not make sense. Are there divine imprints of time and space here? Luli thought of a possibility. Unless there were such divine imprints, there was no other explanation. The holy mountain was dead. It would only carry out Luli's orders and fly forward in a straight line. The divine imprints here were too strong. Blood Fairy would need a long time to finish. There were no pursuers. Aoyu and the others must be trying to take down Emperor Yong's halberd. Therefore, Luli was not in a hurry. Luli sat under the miraculous tree and continued to study the art of concealment. If he could master the art of concealment, he would be fine even if the pursuers caught up. After the time for one incense stick to burn, Blood Fairy said, Master, the divine imprints here are too complicated. I will need at least half a month. Alright, go ahead and investigate. Lu Li frowned. He had no other choice but to wait here. He could only hope that Aou and the others would not take down Emperor Yong's halberd so easily and that they could stall for some time. In the hall behind them, something strange was happening. When Goen reached the 17th level, he suddenly stopped moving because he sensed a fatal danger. He could go up one more level. If he could pass it safely, he would be able to go to the platform and get Emperor Yong's halberd. But Goen did not dare to move. He also noticed that there would be divine imprints at every 6th step. The 6th, the 12th, and the 18th level were all under attack, and each one was more dangerous than the previous one. The Heavenly Hound were the best scouts. Naturally, they had a keen sense of danger. Goen had a feeling that if he were to go up, he would either die or be seriously injured. The 6 Saint Emperors were climbing up. The fastest one had reached the 13th level. Goen rolled his eyes. He was filled with killing intent. The Saint Emperors down there could not attack him, but he could attack the Saint Emperors down there. He had said that the Chu race was exiled by the Heavenly Hound. He had thrown caution to the wind. He had no more concerns. As long as he could get Emperor Yong's halberd, his abilities would soar. He could conceal his identity for a few years. When his abilities were greatly improved, he could return to the Heavenly Hound with glory. Goen did not move. He was resting to tend to his wounds. When the Saint Emperors behind him reached the 15th level, Goen turned around and said to them, "If you go any higher, don't blame me for being rude. Please remember the domain name of this book." 3rd Sect Leaders Mobile Version. Chapter 3069. Goen's words could not scare off the Saint Emperors. If one sentence could scare them off, then they wouldn't need to climb up the platform. After that Saint Emperor reached the 16th stair, Goen made his move without hesitation. His hand glowed with a dark golden light. Gusts of wind shot out from his fingers. The gusts of wind were so strong that the Saint Emperors below could not move at all. They had to take it head-on. The gusts of wind hit the Saint Emperor and left several holes in his body. Boom, boom, boom. After that, Goen released a series of gigantic palms that smashed the Saint Emperor down forcefully. Furthermore, he didn't just roll down, he was sent flying. PFF, the Saint Emperor spat out some blood. He struggled to get up. He glared at Goen in anger and said, "Goen, you and I cannot exist under the same sky. We cannot exist under the same sky." Goen sneered and said, "Come on up. If you can kill me, I will not say another word." The expressions of the Saint Emperors who followed behind became very ugly. The first Saint Emperor who went up was not weak, but he was easily sent flying by Goen and was even heavily injured. What could they do if they went up? They would be smashed down in the end. The platform was too advantageous. Attacks from the outside were blocked by the runes. They were suppressed under the platform. It was difficult for them to attack Goen up there. On the other hand, Goen could easily hit them with his attacks from above. They had to go up one by one. In this case, all the Saint Emperors would not be a match for Goen's soul attacks. One of the Saint Emperors shouted. The 5 Saint Emperors came to their senses. 3 of them had some understanding of soul attack. They targeted Goen with their soul attacks. Unfortunately, their soul attacks were not strong. Goen could fend them off easily. "Let's try using treasures," some Saint Emperors shouted. 2 Saint Emperors released their artifacts as well. However, Lu Li's sacred mountain was easily suppressed back then. Even these artifacts were immobilized by the gravity. Okay. Goen was relieved. As long as the Saint Emperors below did not come up, he would have enough time to go up the platform. He had plenty of time, because he felt that it was impossible for Saint Emperors who were infinitely close to the consummate level to enter this place, and Emperor Yong wouldn't allow them to enter either. If an expert of this level were to enter, the entire tomb of Emperor Yong would collapse. At that time, Miss Li and the others would also die. Who would dare to take the risk? As long as there weren't any Saint Emperors who were infinitely close to Paragon Saint Emperors, he was an invincible existence on the high platform. Who could kill him? Therefore, the halberd of Sovereign Yong would definitely be his in the end. Goen calmed down, but the other Saint Emperors were worried, not knowing what to do. They couldn't go up, and they couldn't do anything to him from below. They could only watch helplessly as he took the halberd of Sovereign Yong. A few sacred emperors glanced at Miss Li and the other two desolate race elders, looking at them pleadingly. However, Miss Li shook her head and said, Goen has already said that he has left the Tiango race, so it's not our place to interfere. We'll report this matter to the clan later. Right now, we don't care about the matter of fighting for the treasure. You can rely on your own abilities. Alright. Those Saint Emperors sighed helplessly. They could only think of a solution themselves. On the other side, Aochi was also a little anxious. He looked at Aou, but Aou did not panic at all. He said indifferently, What's the rush? Even if Goen gets the halberd of Sovereign Yong, can he take it away? He has to come down from above, right? He'll be surrounded by so many Saint Emperors the moment he comes down. We'll take advantage of the chaos to make our move. If Goen can leave the Tiango race, Aou, can also leave the Red Dragon race. This, Aochi was slightly stunned. He said, If you leave the race, you'll be hunted by the various races. When that happens, the race won't be able to protect you. If you have the halberd of Sovereign Yong, there will definitely be countless old demons chasing after you. Kiki. Aou chuckled and sent a voice transmission. As long as I get the halberd of Sovereign Yong, I will find a place to refine it. Once I refine it, I will be able to release the full power of the halberd. With my battle strength and the halberd of Sovereign Yong, I won't even be afraid of ordinary Saint Emperors who are infinitely close to the Paragon Saint Emperors. Paragon Saint Emperors won't chase after me, right? That's true. Aochi nodded slightly. Paragon Saint Emperors naturally wouldn't chase after Aou. There were only 3 Paragon Saint Emperors in the entire infinite desolate star field. These 3 experts wouldn't act easily or lower themselves to chase after Aou. What's more, Aou chuckled. If I really can't do it, I can go to another star field. I still have hundreds of thousands of years to live. After floating outside for tens of thousands of years, I might be able to reach the level of Paragon Saint Emperors. By then, who would dare to cause trouble for me? Yes. Aochi nodded and then said firmly, Elder Aou, just do your best later. I will secretly support you. Don't be hasty. Aou found a corner and sat down cross-legged. He sent a voice transmission. From the looks of it, it will take at least 10 days to half a month to get up. Don't be hasty. Just wait. Yes, I think so too. Aochi looked at Goen. Although Goen was only 1 step away from the high platform, it was not an easy step to take. Otherwise, he would have gone up long ago. Why would he still be lingering there? As expected. Goen had been sitting there for the past few days. He seemed to be thinking hard of a solution. The other Saint Emperors rushed towards the 2 high platforms. It was difficult to get up in the beginning, and their speed slowed down towards the end. This was especially true for the high platform on the left. The first Saint Emperor rushed up to the 11th stone stair, and was blasted down on the 12th stair. Aou did not care much about the Yong Emperor armor and the Yong Emperor world. Defense and soul defense were not very useful. Offense was the best defense. Only powerful attacks could tear apart all enemies. Time passed quickly. 13 days passed. Goen thought of many ways and tried to get up 3 or 4 times. However, he was injured every time. One time, he was seriously injured. The 18th level's divine inscription attack looked simple. It was just a beam of light descending from the sky. However, this light beam did not attack the external appearance. Instead, it directly bombarded the martial artist's life force and soul. No matter how strong the defense was, it was useless. The only way to get up was to find a way to break the divine inscription attack. If he could force his way up, Goen would do it even if he was seriously injured. However, the moment Goen was attacked, a feeling emerged in his soul. If he continued forward, he would have to endure another 3 or 4 of these attacks. Now, he could not even withstand a single attack. If 3 or 4 attacks were to hit him, he would definitely die a miserable death. Hence, he retreated time and time again, unable to take that final step. The other 2 high platforms were the same. 2 formidable martial artists were on the 17th level. No one dared to go up to the last level. The divine inscription on it was too terrifying. 2 formidable martial artists went up and eventually returned with serious injuries. Now, the 2 of them did not dare to go up. All the Saint Emperors were studying the 3 high platforms. Many of them had some understanding of divine inscriptions. At this moment, they were all studying the divine inscriptions. As long as the divine inscriptions could be broken, the rest would not be a problem. There were 2 other Saint Emperors who ran over to the golden coffin. Young Lady Li said that they had no intention of desecrating Sovereign Yong's body. They only wanted to study the divine inscriptions. Young Lady Li did not say much. Today was the day. Blood Fairy, who was in the corridor, finally sent a voice transmission. Master, I am sorry. I have studied the divine inscriptions clearly. I cannot break them. Please remember this book's domain name. 3rd Sect Leader's mobile version. Chapter 3070. He could not solve it. Lu Li opened his eyes abruptly upon hearing this. It meant that he might never be able to get out of this illusion. He might be trapped here for the rest of his life. Or, when Aou and the others came in, he would be killed. Blood Fairy didn't lie, and her words were reliable. Since she said she couldn't solve it, since she said she could not solve it, Lu Li did not have to ask more questions. At least, for the time being, Blood Fairy could not solve it. Since Blood Fairy could not solve it, then Lu Li would have to rely on himself. He could not wait for his death here. After the time for one incense stick to burn, Lu Li asked, "Tell me everything you know about the specific strengths of the patterns here." Okay. Blood Fairy told Lu Li everything she knew. Lu Li went through the information and fell into deep thought again. This time, he spent half a day thinking. Then, he stepped out of the sacred mountain. He put away the sacred mountain, closed his eyes, and walked forward slowly. Standing on the ground, he walked forward step by step with steady step. One of his hands was still touching the wall. He did not believe that he could not walk out of the illusion if he kept touching the wall. He was using the stupidest method. If the path was not endless, then one day he would reach the end. He picked up his pace. He was not fast, but he could cover thousands of miles in 2 hours. Still, the stupidest method did not work. Lu Li had been walking like this for 10 hours. He felt the path was straight and there was no deviation. In 10 hours, he must have covered at least 300,000 miles. Still, he had not reached the end. Around him was still the dark fog. It seemed that the path was endless. He could not walk out no matter how far he went. Every step he took, Lu Li felt his feet were on the ground. He could touch the wall with each step. Therefore, he believed the path he was walking on was real. But the path could not be so long. It was not necessary to build such a long path for a cemetery. What was the point? What was more, was this space infinite as well? To cultivate a path that was millions of miles long, it would take a lot of time, materials, and patterns. Take the Master of the Tomb as an example. Would a powerful warrior be so bored? An expert who was infinitely close to great perfection would not waste his time on such a boring question. Therefore, after much deliberation, Luli came to the conclusion that the only possibility was that there were powerful time and space runes here. He felt that he had walked millions of miles, but in fact, he had only walked a few miles. Perhaps he was like an ant in a model that kept crawling and crawling. Perhaps. Luli looked up and suddenly had a strange feeling. Perhaps there was a tomb keeper in this tomb. At this moment, a pair of eyes was staring at him mockingly, as if it was watching a grasshopper jumping around. You can't get out. At this moment, Luli understood something. If he didn't think of a way to decipher the divine inscriptions, he would never be able to leave this place in this lifetime. Perhaps he felt like he was walking straight ahead, but what he saw and felt were all illusions. He might just be walking around in a circle, turning and turning. Luli stopped and sat down with his legs crossed. He began to think, not about how to break the array, but about the meaning behind the tomb owner's arrangement. He felt that something was strange. The tomb master's remains were all in the main hall in front of him, and all the treasures were in the main hall. What was the point of having a corridor here? Not to mention that there was a teleportation altar in the main hall. Theoretically speaking, the main hall should be the end of the tomb. There was no need to have a corridor here. This was not right. Something must be wrong when something was wrong. Therefore, Luli began to figure out the meaning behind the tomb owner's arrangement. As long as he could figure out the meaning behind the tomb owner's arrangement, he might be able to crack it. He had been sitting there for 15 days. During this time, he still couldn't figure it out. He believed that either Emperor Yong was out of his mind or he hadn't figured it out yet. Luli was stuck in a dead end, and so were the Saint Emperors in the main hall. None of the powerful warriors could go up to the 18th level of the 3 platforms. No matter what they tried, they just couldn't go up. The Saint Emperors that went up to the 1st and 2nd platforms had flown down, leaving the opportunity for the other Saint Emperors. Otherwise, the other Saint Emperors would not be happy about it. Anyone would be unhappy to occupy the toilet but not take a sh*t. The Saint Emperors took turns to go up. 7 or 8 Saint Emperors tried, but none of them could go up. All the Saint Emperors felt like they had entered a treasure mountain, but they were going back empty-handed. Lady Li, why don't you go up and give it a try? A Saint Emperor walked to Lady Li's side and said in a fawning manner. Everyone had seen Lady Li's defense. Perhaps she could withstand the sacred glyph? No one could take the treasure. Rather than wasting it here, it was better to give it to Lady Li. It was also a way to form good karma with the desolate race. That's right. Another Saint Emperor came to his senses and said with a smile, Lady Li, don't worry. If you get the treasure, it will definitely be yours. Whoever dares to object will have to go through me, Lu Sanqian. Lady Li's defense is so strong. Lady Li will definitely get it if she goes up. The Yong Emperor's armor and Yong Emperor's ring are treasures. They are very compatible with a proud son of heaven like Lady Li. Lady Li, go up and give it a try. The treasure belongs to the virtuous, and Lady Li is a virtuous person. A group of Saint Emperors echoed. Since they couldn't take it, anyone would do her a favor. Lady Li was young, but she had already reached the Saint Emperor realm. In the future, she would definitely become one of the most powerful figures of the desolate race. The desolate race did not marry outsiders, only within the desolate race. Hence, even if Lady Li married, she would still be a member of the desolate race. If this situation continued, as long as Lady Li did not die, she would definitely become a supreme expert. Would Lady Li die? Unless Lady Li left the infinite desolate star region, the chances of her dying were nearly zero. Who would dare kill Lady Li in the infinite desolate star region? Unless they were tired of living. Such a person naturally had to be befriended. In the future, if they needed help from the desolate race, it would be a way to form good karma. Lady Li was somewhat hesitant. The 2 Saint Emperors beside her stood proudly without a word. This time, the Yin-Yang world's Saint Emperors had begged Lady Li to go. This was not a violation of the agreement, as they had all recorded it down. Lady Li pondered for a moment before saying, "I am a member of the desolate race. The young Emperor's tomb is in the Yin-Yang world. I am here to mediate. If I were to snatch the treasure, people would probably talk about it if word got out." "So what?" one of the Saint Emperors hurriedly said. "If we were able to obtain the treasure, it would be a mistake for Lady Li to snatch it. Now that we do not have the ability to obtain it, leaving the treasure here will cause trouble. When the time comes, it will cause a war between the various races. If Lady Li were to obtain the treasure, it would be because of your outstanding ability. If anyone dares to gossip, I, Lu Sanqian, will be the first to give them a good scolding." The other Saint Emperors tried to persuade her. Actually, they did not have any bad intentions. After Lady Li obtained the young Emperor's armor and young Emperor's ring, she would definitely be tempted by the young Emperor's halberd. When the time came, if they were to instigate her, she might take the initiative to charge towards Goen. Once Miss Li was on the high platform, would Goen still dare to make a move on her? If Goen did not attack her, he could only retreat. When the time came, everyone could join forces to kill him to vent their anger. Please remember this book's domain name. Third Sect Leaders Mobile Version. Chapter 3071. Miss Li was indeed tempted. She was young after all. Although she didn't have much desire for treasures, the previous treasures were given to her by the desolate race and elders. If she could take the treasures herself, it would have a different meaning, not to mention that these 3 treasures were all famous treasures. She used a seal stone to record the current scene. She didn't fight for the treasure, but the experts of the Yin and Yang world couldn't obtain the treasure, and they even took the initiative to ask her to help them. No matter where she brought this matter, no one would say anything. She nodded, and didn't say anything pretentious. She took the initiative to walk towards the center of the platform. She was quite interested in the ring, and in terms of armor, she was also wearing top-grade armor. The young Emperor's armor was similar to the one she was wearing. She walked to the middle platform and sank down as soon as she stepped on it. However, her armor lit up and a stream of light flowed within it, making her look even more beautiful. She didn't kneel down, but continued to walk step by step against the pressure. However, when she reached the 4th step, she finally couldn't take it anymore. Her body was pressed down and she was forced to crawl on the ground. This was very indecent. It was rare to see a rich young lady, a top young lady of the infinite desolate star field, crawling step by step with her butt in the air. Therefore, there was a reason why Miss Li was hesitant and didn't want to go up. Miss Li had already made up her mind, so she didn't think too much. She gritted her teeth and climbed up step by step. Soon, she reached the 6th step and the runes on it began to attack. It had to be said that Miss Li's armor's defense was very strong. The runes on it didn't hurt her at all. She climbed up just like that. A group of Saint Emperors stared at Miss Li. Seeing her climb up with her but in the air, some of the Saint Emperors had lustful looks in their eyes. The desolate race did not marry outsiders, so no one dared to touch this Miss Li. Therefore, the group of old men could only fantasize. Miss Li's combat strength wasn't strong, but her defense was heaven-defying. In just 2 hours, she stood on the 17th step. The Saint Emperors all flew down to make way for Miss Li. Miss Li struggled to sit up on the 17th floor. She then swallowed a few pills and rested for a full 2 hours before getting up. She took out a snow-white mirror and placed it on her head, then slowly climbed up to the 18th floor. Boom, boom, boom. A beam of light whizzed down and hit the mirror. The beam of light was actually reflected back a little. Only a small portion of the energy entered the mirror and entered Miss Li's body. Miss Li's delicate body trembled, but she did not hesitate and continued to climb forward quickly. The beams of light shot down continuously, but they were all bounced back by the mirror. Only a small amount of energy entered Miss Li's body. Even so, the aura within Miss Li's body was weakening at a rate visible to the naked eye. At the same time, Miss Li's body was trembling nonstop and her face was extremely pale. Blood flowed out from the corners of her mouth. It was obvious that she was seriously injured. Miss! The two Desolate Race elders immediately turned anxious. One of the elders shouted, "Miss, quickly retreat. You can't continue walking forward. Quickly retreat." Miss Li did not retreat. Instead, she gritted her teeth and continued to climb forward. Under the nervous gazes of countless people, Miss Li actually climbed up the high platform. However, as soon as she got on the platform and sensed that there was no danger, she immediately fainted on the platform. "Miss!" The two elders immediately panicked. However, after sensing for a while, they discovered that Miss Li was not dead. She had only fainted. The two elders slightly relaxed. As long as she was not dead, it would be fine. Miss Li's body was very strong, and she would recover very quickly. She would wake up in at most a day or two. She went up. The eyes of many Saint Emperors lit up. Some of the Saint Emperors had looks of envy. If not for Miss Li's identity, many of the Saint Emperors would probably be filled with hatred and killing intent. Goen began to panic. Miss Li had actually gone up? If she could go up, then the other high platforms would definitely be able to go up as well. If she ascended to her high platform, where would she go? If he attacked her, he would be making an enemy of the Desolate Race. There would be no place for him in the entire infinite region. If he did not attack her, what if Miss Li attacked him and smashed him down? If that happened, the young Emperor Halberd would be taken away. He would be chased down and surrounded by a group of Saint Emperors. Not only would he not get anything, he would also die here. Hurry up! Goen could only think of a way to climb up within half a month. After Miss Li obtained the ring, she would definitely think of a way to obtain the young Emperor Halberd. Only then would she have designs on the young Emperor Halberd. Indeed, Miss Li woke up a day later. She probed the high platform and after confirming that there was no danger, she easily took the young Emperor ring. She held the ring in her hand and carefully sensed it. Her pale face blushed. This was no doubt the young Emperor ring. She could tell that the ring was a treasure just by sensing it. Not bad, not bad. She was after all a young girl. Although the Desolate Race was cold and aloof, and Miss Li was severely injured, she still revealed a faint smile. Phew! The high platform did not have any divine rune arrays. Miss Li tried jumping down and landed straight on the ground. The two Desolate Race experts immediately surrounded her. Miss Li said with a faint smile, "I'm fine. I just lost some of my life essence. I will recover after a period of rest. Alright, let's recuperate first. There's no rush anyway," one of the elders said. The other elder nodded. The Desolate Race did not lack treasures, but Miss Li was the most important. If anything were to happen to Miss Li, they would all be severely punished. Miss Li did not dare to take the risk. She walked to a corner and took out a jade box. In the jade box was a white herb with a rich fragrance. She took it out and began refining it. Holy Spirit herb. A sacred emperor recognized the divine herb and could not help but twitch his mouth. This divine herb was no ordinary divine herb. Even they did not dare to casually use such a divine herb when they were injured. This divine herb was too precious, yet Miss Li had casually refined it. It looked like she was refining an ordinary divine herb. The Desolate Race is indeed rich. The other sacred emperor sighed. However, upon further thought, the Desolate Race occupied the best plane in the infinite desolate star domain. They occupied so many top-grade resources and treasured lands. If they weren't rich, who could be? After 4 to 5 days of recuperation, Miss Li had fully recovered from her injuries. She once again began climbing the first high platform on the left. After spending more than half a day, she successfully climbed up and took the young Emperor armor. Miss Eli is awesome. She is indeed a heavenly genius. That's right, that's right. Miss Eli is a peerless genius of the desolate race that only appears once every 10,000 years. We concede defeat. Miss Eli, this young emperor tomb belongs to our Yin-Yang world. Today, all the large races of the Yin-Yang world have representatives. We have decided to give the young emperor halberd to Miss Eli. Miss Eli can go up and take this peerless divine weapon. Yes, yes. Since we can't take the young emperor halberd, Miss Eli, you can take it. It's better for you to take it than that old dog. Miss Eli, feel free to take it. Goen has already left the Tiango race. He is now nothing, so there's no need to worry. The surrounding sacred emperors surrounded her and began to instigate Miss Eli to take the young emperor halberd. Since they couldn't take it, they might as well give it to Miss Eli. This way they could at least force Goen to retreat and kill him to vent their anger. Chapter 3072. Miss Eli was indeed tempted, mainly because she felt a sense of accomplishment after obtaining the two treasures. Especially the young emperor's halberd, a famous treasure in the entire infinite region. If she could bring it back, she would no doubt gain face in front of her elders. Born into a wealthy family, she did not lack anything. She had her elders to help her with everything. Even though she had broken through to the Saint Emperor realm at such a young age, she did not feel much of a sense of accomplishment, because she had only managed to do so with the help of her elders. She was a very smart person. She knew that wherever she went, she would be fawned upon by countless experts. But deep down, they definitely looked down on her. They believed that she was born into the desolate race and had decent talent. So she wanted to prove herself. Now that she had obtained the young emperor's ring and young emperor's armor, which a group of saint emperors could not obtain, she was naturally overjoyed. Even though she had obtained the two treasures, it was mostly because of the treasures given to her by Ancestor Fu. If she could obtain the young emperor's halberd, her name would immediately spread throughout the entire infinite region. She would also be seen in a different light by the desolate race's elders. This time, she represented the desolate race. Not only did she make the two Scarlet Dragon experts bow their heads, she had also made Goen announce that he was leaving the Tiango clan. This matter had already been settled. If she could obtain the young emperor's halberd, the elders would probably be overjoyed, right? The two desolate race saint emperors were tempted as well. After all, Emperor Yang's halberd was a very famous treasure. It contained powerful true meanings of the laws of space and time. If this treasure landed in the hands of the desolate race, it would greatly increase their combat power. Miss Li did not immediately agree. Instead, she waved her hand. I'm injured. Let me heal first. She walked to a corner and took out another Holy Spirit herb to refine. This scene left many saint emperors speechless. Such a precious Holy Spirit herb was no different from an ordinary divine herb in Miss Li's hands. Was it something that could be squandered? Goen heard the following Saint Emperor's words. He also saw Miss Li's reaction. He was extremely anxious. He knew that Miss Li would definitely come back after she recovered. When that happened, it would not be good for him to act or not. If he acted, he would definitely die. The desolate race would not let him off. If he didn't act, he would also die. The desolate race would immediately surround and kill him. 2 days later, Goen clenched his teeth and made up his mind. No matter what, he had to risk it all. 2 days later, when Miss Li recovered, he would immediately rush up to the top. Even if he died, he would die there. It was pitch dark in the corridor. Dark fog was rolling in. Luli had been sitting here with his legs crossed for a long time. He even had an illusion that he had been sitting here for decades. During this time, he didn't try to decipher the divine glyphs, nor did he count on Blood Fairy. He was trying to figure out what the tomb owner was thinking. As long as he figured out the tomb master's arrangements, he believed that he would be able to leave easily. Why did you arrange it like this? What was the point of this arrangement? Was the tomb owner really that bored? What profound meaning was hidden within? What is Emperor Yong thinking? Many thoughts came to Lu Li's mind. He felt like he had lost his mind and was possessed by the thought. He was a little crazy inside, and as time went on, he became more and more irritable and annoyed. Forget it. Lu Li opened his eyes and rubbed his temples. Then, he closed his eyes, lay on the ground and fell asleep. Theoretically speaking, he should sleep in the sacred mountain, where he would be safe. However, he was mentally and physically exhausted. Therefore, he didn't think too much before he fell asleep on the ground. He slept for 2 days. All of a sudden, Lu Li woke up with a start. In his daze, he seemed to have a sense of movement underground. Bang bang bang, the movement underground was rhythmic. It was like a piece of deep music that could strike at one's soul. Lu Li heard the sound in his daze. The sound dragged him in. He was not in a hurry to wake up. Instead, he kept listening to the rhythm, which gave him a mysterious feeling. Lu Li was immersed in the rhythm. He waited for over 2 hours before he slowly woke up. The rhythm stopped. He opened his eyes in a daze. The rhythm was still echoing in his mind. Am I dreaming? Lu Li shook his head. After the time for one incense stick to burn, he came back to his senses and murmured, I don't think I am dreaming. Where did the rhythm come from? Underground? Why is there such a rhythm? What is the meaning of this rhythm? Lu Li thought about it. He lay on the ground again and listened carefully. But the rhythm did not come again. After a moment of silence, he forced himself to sleep. His soul was empty. Soon, he fell asleep. However, in the time for several incense sticks to burn, Lu Li was alarmed again. The rhythmic sound came again. This time, Lu Li paid more attention. He memorized all the rhythms and began to trace the source of the rhythm. It seemed to be underground. Lu Li secretly used the mark of Tao to check. It did seem that the rhythm was coming from underground, but the rhythm was colorless and shapeless. It was just a vague feeling. After a moment, the rhythm disappeared. Lu Li told Blood Fairy about this strange situation and the rhythm as well. Blood Fairy pondered for a moment and said, Master, the rhythm seems to be controlling the divine glyphs. Controlling divine patterns? Lu Li was taken aback. Are you sure? Aren't the divine patterns automatic? Do they need to be controlled? Usually, the divine patterns are automatic. When the one who set them up has set it up, the divine patterns will be automatic. Blood Fairy explained, but some powerful divine patterns can be controlled by people as well. With control, the divine patterns will be more powerful and more precise. What? Lu Li remembered the hall with the stone pillars. The divine patterns would increase the power of the divine patterns according to the warrior's strength. Lu Li had been wondering why the divine patterns here were so miraculous. Could it be that there really was a tomb keeper who was controlling the divine patterns? On this thought, Lu Li had an idea. Blood Fairy, can you imitate the divine patterns controlled by rhythm? That is easy. Blood Fairy replied. The thing is, I do not know how the rhythm is controlling the divine patterns here. I do not know what kind of rhythm controls which divine patterns. I cannot understand the original set pattern. If I release the rhythm at will, something bad will happen. If all the divine patterns in the hall are messed up, this place might collapse. In that case, we will all die. The divine patterns of the divine patterns can be messed up? Lu Li was not afraid at all after hearing Blood Fairy's words. Instead, his eyes glowed. He shouted, It would be better if it is messed up. The messier, the better. If we can mess up all the divine patterns in the tomb of Emperor Yong, then we can leave this place easily. Trust me, Blood Fairy. We can't decipher the divine inscriptions in this hallway. Our only way out is to cause chaos. If we can cause the tomb of Emperor Yong to explode, then we can get whatever we want. Please remember the original domain name of this book. Third Sect Leader's Mobile Version. Chapter 3073. Finally, Luli figured it out. This corridor was not designed by Emperor Yong. Emperor Yong would not be so bored unless there were more powerful treasures at the end of the corridor. That was impossible. Emperor Yong's halberd was the most powerful one. What else could be at the end when Emperor Yong's body was here? Moreover, there was a teleportation altar here, which was used to arrange the way out for people. Adding another corridor would just be superfluous. It was abrupt, out of place, and unreasonable. Emperor Yong would not do something so boring. Luli had thought this was Emperor Yong's ingenuity. Now he understood. It was not Emperor Yong, but the Tombkeeper. The Tombkeeper had been here for many years with nothing to do. Due to the agreement with Emperor Yong, the Tombkeeper could not go out. The Tombkeeper had to find something to do here. This corridor was the result of the Tombkeeper's boredom. It was a painful lesson for those who came in and were not satisfied with the 3 treasures. They would pay for their greed and be trapped here for the rest of their lives. For those who came in and took the 3 treasures of Emperor Yong's halberd and then left through the altar, nothing would happen to them. If they were greedy and wanted more treasures, they would be walking into a dead end after entering this corridor, a path that they could never leave. Since Luli and Blood Fairy could not get out, the only way was to let the Tombkeeper send him out. How could he let the Tombkeeper send him out? Luli thought of a way, which was to destroy the divine patterns here and make them messy. Before Emperor Yong passed away, he must have made an agreement with the Tombkeeper. Some red lines could not be touched and some principles could not be broken. For example, the divine patterns here could not be messed up. Also, the Tombkeeper could not use the divine patterns to kill the warriors who came in. Those should be the red lines. Otherwise, if the Tombkeeper acted rashly, all the warriors who came in would die. Of course, if Blood Fairy messed up the divine patterns here, the Tombkeeper might kill Luli and Blood Fairy. Maybe Emperor Yong had set up such a rule. But Luli wanted to take a gamble. This was his only way out. All of this was Luli's speculation. He did not know if it would work out or not. He had no other choice but to take the risk. Luli told Blood Fairy about the rhythm he had sensed, and she began to study it. Blood Fairy knew how to control divine glyphs through rhythm, but she had never used it before. This time, she wanted to give it a try. At this moment, the main hall was bustling with noise and excitement, because Miss Li had moved. In the end, Miss Li could not hold back any longer. She prepared to take the Yong Emperor halberd. This weapon was too famous. If she could take it, her name would spread throughout the entire infinite region. Although she was very famous in the past, it was all because of the desolate race. Now, she was prepared to rely on herself to gain some fame. She wanted to prove herself. She walked towards the high platform on the right. All the holy emperors were gathered below the high platform. The holy emperors above had all come down, and they were waiting for Miss Li to go up and see how Goen would handle this. If Goen was sent flying by Miss Li, then they would have fun. A group of saint emperors would torture Goen to death. The powerhouses of the 33 major clans were undoubtedly delighted to be able to slaughter them in broad daylight. Miss Li was fast. She had reached the 13th stone stair while Goen was still on the 17th stair, not daring to go up. He had gone up once in the past few days. He tried to risk his life but failed and almost died. Goen was still on the 17th stair. He had recovered a little but he had lost all hope. He did not know what to do. Miss Li was coming up bit by bit. Goen's eyes were closed but he could sense it clearly. He was struggling internally, wondering if he should do something to Miss Li. What about Aou? In the corner, Aochi was struggling as well. He said to Aochi, "If Miss Li takes the young Emperor halberd, then all our efforts will be in vain. That human bastard must have run far away. We will not be able to answer to the Cauldron Emperor when we get back. Don't worry. Let's wait and see." Aou sighed and replied, "Goen might take the risk out of desperation. We still have a chance. I know Goen. If he takes action, Miss Li will not be able to go up. Do you understand?" "Goen will take action? Isn't that a little too bold?" Aochi was slightly alarmed as he stared at Goen, waiting for the situation to change. The other sacred emperors were also waiting. The two sacred emperors were even more nervous, afraid that Miss Li would lose a strand of hair. 15th level, 16th level. At this moment, Goen's eyes opened abruptly. Then, he waved his hands and a series of gigantic palms were formed, slapping towards Miss Li. Goen had indeed taken the risk. Goen thought that if Miss Li came up, she would definitely think of a way to force him down. If not, how would she go up to the 18th level? How would she take the young Emperor halberd? And once he went down, he would most likely be dismembered by the experts below. Since it was death, what was there to be afraid of? At most, he would be hunted by the desolate race. As long as he took the young Emperor halberd and successfully escaped, he could think of a way to escape infinite desolate star region and go to another star region. "How dare you!" The two sacred emperors were immediately enraged. One of them roared, "Goen, if you dare to attack my race's miss, the desolate race will definitely hunt you down." Boom, boom, boom. Miss Li was continuously attacked, and could not stabilize her body. She tumbled down the 15th level, but thankfully, her defenses were strong and she was not injured. She was just covered in dirt. "Ha ha ha!" Goen laughed loudly and said, "You desolate race sure are awesome. Only you are allowed to hit others, but others are not allowed to hit you? Today I, Goen, will take action. Since I have already been expelled by the Tiango race, I'm alone. What's there to be afraid of? Miss Li, right? I advise you not to come up, or don't blame me if you die." Goen was going all out. He did not care about anything. As long as Miss Li dared to come up, he would dare to smack her down. It did not matter even if he smacked her to death. If he attacked Miss Li, it would be a provocation to the prestige ancestor. The desolate race would not let him off, so there was no difference if he smacked Miss Li to death or not. Miss Li was enraged. Her hair was disheveled, making her lose a lot of face. A faint, killing intent flashed in her eyes as she continued climbing up. A mirror appeared in her hand, as well as a tiny red sword. This sword was naturally a sacred weapon, one personally refined by the prestige ancestor. There were nomological truths engraved on it by the prestige ancestor. Although it was not a top sacred weapon, it was not weak either. Goen revealed a mocking smile. Although Miss Li was covered in treasures, she had just broken through to the sacred emperor realm not long ago. Furthermore, she did not have much actual combat experience. To him, she was no different from a child holding a divine weapon. Phew! Just as Miss Li reached the 16th stone step, Goen took action. His hands flashed continuously as countless finger winds flashed, transforming into flood dragons that shot towards Miss Li. Miss Li did not even have time to react before her body was struck by countless finger winds. She felt a pain in her hand as she did not manage to hold on to the red sacred weapon and mirror. They were sent flying. Boom, boom, boom. Following that, Goen released a large palm seal, easily sending Miss Li tumbling down. Please remember this book's original domain name. Third Sect Masters Mobile Version. Chapter 3074. This time, young Mistress Li was not injured, but she was in a worse state. Her expression was even uglier. Since young, she had never suffered such humiliation. This time, she was embarrassed in front of so many formidable martial artists. She even had the thought of dying. However, she was still very smart. Although her heart was filled with killing intent, she did not act rashly. Instead, she began to ponder. She could not go up like this. She had to think of a way, otherwise she would be blasted down again and again. She pondered for the time it took for an incense stick to burn before returning to the stone staircase below. She put away the mirror and the small red sword, and then slowly climbed up. This time, she stopped at the 15th stone staircase. She then began to release a secret art. Her body emitted a thick pink mist. That mist spread out and quickly enveloped the stone staircase nearby. Poisonous mist? Goen's eyes turned cold. He sensed for a moment and began to release his palms, trying to disperse the pink mist. He released a few palms, but the mist could not be dispersed. That feeling was not mist but an illusion? Illusion realm? Goen suddenly realized that this was not mist but an illusion realm. He scanned with his divine perception and indeed found that he had lost track of young Mistress Li. His heart tightened. Gusts of wind shot out from his fingers, and they danced around like flood dragons. He released the finger winds not to attack but to find out where young Mistress Li was. The Saint Emperors below were all astonished. At this moment they also realized that the stone staircase from the 14th to the 18th step was covered by the pink mist. They could not use their divine perception to investigate and could not see the situation inside. Oh no. Aou, however, exclaimed softly, Goen is about to lose. This is a secret art created by Ancestor Fu, called the Whole Sky Formation. I did not expect young Mistress Li to succeed in cultivating it. Goen will not be able to break this formation in a short time. This is an illusion array, right? Aochi, however, said disapprovingly, what is there to worry about an illusion array? Young Mistress Li's defense is very strong, but her battle strength is still lacking. If she goes up to the 17th step, Goen will definitely sense it. At that time, he will be able to defeat her easily. You are wrong. Aou shook his head and said, You have forgotten something. You have forgotten the desolate race's innate mystical ability. Aochi faltered slightly before his expression turned bitter. The desolate race's innate divine powers were indeed powerful. Goen might not be able to withstand it. Up above, Miss Li had already reached the 16th floor. Although there were countless finger winds dancing above, Miss Li did not care. She quickly climbed up and climbed to the 17th floor. The diamond mark on her forehead lit up, and an invisible light shot out and entered Goen's body. At this moment, Goen became absent-minded, as if he had a feeling that time was in disorder. He felt that he had returned to the original scene. A pink mist spread out. Xiao! The small red sword in Miss Li's hand flew out. The small sword turned into a fiery red dragon in midair. It roared and smashed towards Goen with an earth-shaking aura. Goen felt time distort for a breath of time. When he woke up, the fire dragon had already slammed into him. His heart shook, and before he could react, the fire dragon had already smashed into him. Boom! A huge force came over him as he felt a sharp pain in his body. Following that, his body flew up and flew off the high platform. Goen was extremely anxious and terrified. There was a group of Saint Emperors below him. He was like a lamb that had fallen into a pack of wolves. The desolate race's innate divine power. He was secretly annoyed. He originally thought that Miss Li had just broken through to Saint Emperor, so her innate divine power would not affect him. He never expected it to affect him for a breath of time. And this breath of time was enough to be fatal. The desolate race's innate divine power was publicly known as the strongest innate divine power in the infinite desolate star field. Their innate divine power naturally contained the true meaning of time. It could make the enemy feel that time was in disorder, making them unable to distinguish the situation. In a battle between experts, a breath of time was enough to determine life and death. That was why the desolate race was so strong, and why they could become the overlords of the infinite desolate star field. 1. Before Goen floated down, his body lit up with a dazzling light. Following that, his aura skyrocketed. He waved his hands continuously, and a sky full of finger winds shot out. It was like a sky full of sword lights, covering the heads of the dozen or so Saint Emperors below him. Goen's aura skyrocketed, and so did his attack power. The finger winds carried a fatal aura, and the Saint Emperors hurriedly retreated to avoid being hit. Goen's body drew an arc in the air, and he rushed toward the teleportation altar as fast as he could. Since he could not obtain the young Emperor's halberd, Goen naturally had to save his life. He had to escape first. He's trying to escape. The Saint Emperors came to their senses, but Goen's speed was too fast. He rushed to the side of the altar in an instant. As he quickly activated the altar, he turned his head and laughed sinisterly. You want to kill me? Dream on. His smile quickly froze before he could completely relax. This was because he realized that the teleportation altar had been sealed. The surrounding Saint Emperors were also startled, and then they all laughed. All the Saint Emperors had sinister smiles in their eyes. One Saint Emperor laughed and said, "Goen, why aren't you laughing? Continue laughing, ha 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 ha. You bastard." The other Saint Emperor laughed and said, "Continue to run, continue to be arrogant, continue to attack, don't stop." Whoosh whoosh whoosh. The more than a dozen Saint Emperors surrounded Goen pulled a long face, and his eyes were filled with fear. The Heaven Hound race was good at tracking and running. But how could he run under such circumstances? Who was the one who sealed this teleportation altar? Was it that human bastard? Goen thought came to his mind. Soon, he understood. If Luli had teleported out from here, how could he have had the time to seal the altar? If it was not Luli who did it, then the seal must have been there all along. Then where was Luli? The corridor. Goen came to his senses. All of a sudden, he flew up and became transparent. He turned into a gust of wind and was about to dash toward the corridor. Buzzing, a purple wall of air sprang up in the sky. Goen bumped into the wall of air. A Saint Emperor laughed and said, "You want to run? In your dreams." Boom, boom, boom. The Saint Emperors around him began to attack Goen in a frenzy. Goen was fast. He dodged left and right and dodged. But no matter how he dodged, there were too many Saint Emperors around him. Soon, he was hit. "Aou, what should we do?" Aochi was panicking. If Goen died, then the Saint Emperors of the Yin and Yang realm would have the absolute advantage. It was almost impossible for them to take down Sovereign Yang's halberd. "What else can we do?" Aou sighed. "Are we a match for the dozen Saint Emperors? Admit defeat this time. Wait and see. Don't do anything rash." Boom. After dozens of attacks, Goen could no longer hold on. A Saint Emperor landed a blow on him. His head was crushed and he died instantly. Please remember this book's domain name. Third Sect Leader's mobile version. Chapter 3075. With Goen dead, all the uncertainties were gone. Miss Li was relieved. The young Emperor halberd had been taken. The two desolate race experts were delighted. With the 3 treasures taken, it was a complete success. Miss Li did not rush up immediately. She sat cross-legged and prepared to rest and recuperate for a period of time. She wanted to be in peak condition so that nothing would happen. With Goen dead and Aou and company obedient, Miss Li was in no hurry. There were 2 desolate race elders watching, so how could they overturn the heavens? Half a day passed quickly. Suddenly, something strange happened in the Grand Hall. The hall shook violently and the runes on the walls began to flash. Following that, a thick black fog appeared. What's going on? The sacred emperors were alarmed. Why were the runes flashing for no reason? And why was there a black fog? Was there poison in the black fog? The crowd sensed and felt relieved after confirming that there was no poison in the black fog. How strange! Aochi's eyes flashed with astonishment. His attainments in the Tao of divine inscriptions were extremely deep. Earlier, he sensed that the divine inscriptions in this great hall seemed to be convulsing. They only moved a little before returning to normal. This didn't make sense. The divine inscriptions here looked very stable, so why would such a situation occur? No one in the grand hall moved. No one had touched the runes. The exit seems to be sealed. Let's unseal it first. A sacred emperor came to a realization. The runes in the grand hall were so powerful. There had to be no problems. They had to prepare the exit first so that they could escape at any time. A sacred emperor who was proficient in runes went over and checked. He said, "This rune is very powerful. It will probably take 2 to 3 days to unseal it. During this time, do not touch any runes." I felt that something was wrong with the runes. All the experts felt that something was wrong. The runes had flashed and then stopped moving. No one had touched them. It was too strange. Miss Li was in seclusion, so she did not know what was happening outside. The 2 desolate race elders did not wake her up. Miss Li was going to the 18th floor. If she was not in peak condition, something might happen. Buzz, after waiting for a while, the hall shook again, and the divine inscription flashed again, but after that, there was no more movement. What's going on? Did I see a ghost? Who's activating the divine inscription? The group of Saint Emperors all felt their hair stand on end, feeling as though this place was haunted. They were already in the graveyard, and the divine inscriptions were still flashing. If it were a group of Saint Emperors, if it were a bunch of weak cultivators, their legs would have already turned soft from fear. Of course, it wasn't a ghost. It was Blood Fairy. Luli asked Blood Fairy to control the patterns in the tomb of Emperor Yong at will. Surprisingly, it worked. She didn't understand the meaning of these rhythms, but she could control them as she pleased. Under her control, the divine imprints in many places started to activate. Some of the divine runes in the halls unleashed terrifying attacks that destroyed the entire hall. Boom, 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 buzz, 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 chi, chi. At this moment, if there was someone who could scan the entire tomb of the young emperor, they would discover that the divine inscriptions in countless halls and halls were all activated in a haphazard manner. Some items within the tomb of the young emperor had already been destroyed, and the entire place was in utter chaos. Master, many divine inscriptions have already been activated. Do you still want to continue? Blood Fairy asked Luli after she had been messing around. She was afraid that at this rate, the divine inscriptions in the tomb of Emperor Yong would be messed up. By then, the tomb of Emperor Yong would collapse, and they would die without a burial site. Luli sat on the ground, expressionless. Inside, he was nervous. If the agreement that Emperor Yong gave to the tomb keeper stated that the tomb keeper could kill at will, then Luli and Blood Fairy would be killed soon. Therefore, Luli was nervous. He kept an eye on the surroundings. If anything went wrong, he would go to the sacred mountain at once. Go on. Luli waited for a moment. Nothing unexpected happened. He made up his mind and continued to give orders to Blood Fairy. Blood Fairy continued to mess up the divine inscriptions in the tomb of Emperor Yong. This time, more halls were in a mess. Some of the halls even directly exploded. Buzzing, right at that moment, an invisible ripple spread out to where Blood Fairy was. Blood Fairy sensed something. She said to Luli in pleasant surprise, "Master, there is a strange psychic power coming from underground. That psychic power means, if I continue to act recklessly, he will kill us. There really is a tomb keeper." Ha ha ha. Luli laughed. He was overjoyed. He stood up and paced up and down in excitement. He thought about it and said, "Blood Fairy, send a message." He must surrender to me or I will destroy the tomb of Emperor Yong. At this moment, Luli was certain that this tomb keeper would not dare to kill him and Blood Fairy. Otherwise, he would not send a message and would kill them directly. Usually, if a tomb keeper had this kind of authority, he would not waste time with the challengers. He would not expose himself and let the challengers know of his existence. Therefore, Luli demanded an exorbitant price. If this tomb keeper surrendered, then he would be in control of the entire tomb of Emperor Yong. He could kill anyone he wanted. Soon, Blood Fairy sent a message. That tomb keeper refused and continued to threaten Luli. Ha 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 ha. Luli laughed. He was calmer. He said, "Don't mind him. Keep controlling the rhythm and make the divine inscriptions chaotic. The more chaotic, the better. The divine inscriptions will yield." Okay. Blood Fairy continued to control the divine inscriptions through the rhythm. She did not know exactly what kind of rhythm could control the divine inscriptions. She just wanted to mess around and see what went wrong. Buzzing, buzzing, buzzing once again, something went wrong in the hall. The divine inscriptions were glaring. Dark fog kept surging out and the hall was shaking. What was worse was that the coffin was trembling as if Emperor Yong was about to climb out. Young lady. The leaders of the wild race were frightened. They were afraid that something was wrong. They said to Lady Li at once, "Young lady, wake up. Get the halberd of Emperor Yong and come down at once. I think something is going to happen to the hall." Aochi. A saint emperor suddenly walked over to Aochi and said, "The hall might be in trouble. You are skilled in divine inscriptions. Go and help to open the seal. That way we can go out at any time." Aochi looked at Aoyu, who nodded. Either way, they must have a way out first. In this way, if something went wrong, they could at least stay alive. Aochi hurried to the altar and began to crack the seal. On the other side, Lady Li woke up. After a series of voice transmissions, her expression changed. After some thought, she took out another Holy Spirit herb and refined it. 2 hours later, Lady Li stood up and quickly climbed up to the 18th floor. All the Saint Emperors looked over. Lady Li clenched her teeth and climbed up. A beam of white light immediately blasted down. Her body trembled and her face turned pale. But she did not hesitate. Step by step, she climbed forward. Countless beams of light shot down. With the help of the mirror and the powerful armor, Lady Li successfully climbed up the platform. Great! The 2 Saint Emperors were overjoyed. Lady Li's pale face also revealed a smile. Although she was very weak, she did not faint this time. Instead, she staggered towards the halberd of Emperor Yong. Lady Li was just 1 step away from the halberd of Emperor Yong. The next moment, she was about to grab the halberd of Emperor Yong. The entire platform lit up with a beam of light. Following that, the halberd of Emperor Yong suddenly disappeared without a trace. Please remember this book's domain name. 3rd Sect Masters Mobile Version. Chapter 3076. Disappeared. Miss Li blinked her eyes, thinking she had seen wrongly. The group of Saint Emperors below also blinked their eyes in confusion before looking at each other. This young Emperor's halberd had been there all along, but when Miss Li went up and was about to take it, it disappeared? Could it be that young Emperor did not want to give his halberd to others? Was he deliberately toying with them? No one could figure it out. Miss Li scanned her surroundings and became angry. She had worked so hard to get up here, and just as she was about to get it, the cooked duck had flown away? Why did this happen? No one could figure it out. Aoyu exchanged glances with Aochi, who was deciphering the divine patterns. Aoyu asked with a voice transmission, "Aochi, did you feel the abnormality of the divine patterns? Did you find out where young Emperor's halberd went? The divine patterns here have been acting strangely." Aochi shook his head slightly and replied, "How can I sense where young Emperor's halberd went? I am not a god, I can calculate everything. The divine patterns here were so complicated and mysterious. If Aochi could decipher them, young Emperor's halberd would have been taken long ago. Therefore, Aou was overthinking. What is this corridor for? Finally, someone noticed the corridor. Previously, because young Emperor's halberd was here, no one paid attention to the corridor. Now that young Emperor's halberd had suddenly disappeared, someone naturally had his eyes on the corridor. Don't go in. One of the desolate race's Saint Emperors suddenly said, I feel that there is a great danger in this corridor. I tried to sense it earlier, and it might be impossible to come out once you enter. The Saint Emperor wanted to go in and investigate, but he immediately retreated. Some members of the desolate race had the ability to avoid danger. Since the desolate race's elder had said so, how could the Saint Emperor dare to take the risk? Miss, come down first. Another desolate race's elder said. If they could not take down young Emperor's halberd, then so be it. The desolate race did not lack this bit of treasure. As long as nothing happened to the people, everything else was trivial. Miss Lee circled around the high platform twice. After confirming that young Emperor's halberd had disappeared, she helplessly flew down. She sat in a corner with a cold expression and began recuperating. One day, Aochi gave an accurate conclusion. In one day, he would be able to break the seal. When that happened, the group of experts would be able to leave. I'll go for a walk. There was another Saint Emperor who couldn't bear it any longer and flew into the corridor, disappearing. The other two Saint Emperors glanced at each other before rushing into the corridor as well. Sovereign Yong's halberd had disappeared, so he definitely wasn't in the hall they were passing by. He was definitely in the hall behind them. The corridor was the only way. If Sovereign Yong's halberd was in the main hall, then he must have entered from the corridor. Otherwise, what was the point of this corridor? With 3 Saint Emperors leading the charge, the other Saint Emperors were tempted. With so many Saint Emperors, even if there was danger, they would be able to survive. If it was too dangerous, he could retreat and leave through the teleportation altar. The allure of Sovereign Yong's halberd quickly caused the other 2 Saint Emperors to charge forward. Aou was also somewhat tempted. He transmitted a message to Aochi. Aochi thought for a moment, then replied, You go. I'll stay here and guard your path of retreat. If you snatch Sovereign Yong's halberd, you must retreat immediately. My arrangements will allow us to leave this place earlier. All right. Aou's spirit was immediately lifted, and he quickly rushed toward the corridor. The other Saint Emperors could no longer sit still. Everyone had a heart of blind obedience. If no one dared to go, the others naturally wouldn't go. With the first, there would be a second. The other experts definitely couldn't sit still. They all had a certain level of confidence in themselves, and believed that the runes here wouldn't be able to trap them. The corridor was now filled with black fog. One expert after another entered, but they were soon swallowed by the black fog. The remaining experts couldn't sit still. After a moment of silence, they all rushed in. Only Miss Li and the 2 desolate race elders were left, as well as Aochi, who was still in the process of breaking the seal. Miss Li opened her eyes. Although she was still recuperating, she was still paying attention to the situation outside. A group of experts had moved, and they were all going for Sovereign Yong's halberd. How could she not have any thoughts? If she hadn't gone up to grab Sovereign Yong's halberd, she definitely wouldn't have had any thoughts about it. But now, in her heart, Sovereign Yong's halberd was hers. Something that belonged to her was about to be snatched away by others. How could she sit still? She had only refined the divine medicine, and after recovering for a moment, she opened her eyes and said, Come, let's go in and take a look. Miss. A desolate race elder turned anxious and hurriedly said, It's too dangerous inside. We can't go in. If we get trapped inside, it will be a big problem. What can happen? Miss Li said unhappily, It's not like you don't know my defenses. Even if something happens, I can summon the Ancestor's soul avatar. With the Ancestor around, what's there to be afraid of? If we get trapped, the race will naturally send experts to rescue us. The desolate race elder thought about it, but he was speechless. The Ancestor of Prestige had given Miss Li a jade talisman. This jade talisman contained a wisp of the Ancestor of Prestige's soul avatar. Once it was crushed, the Ancestor of Prestige's soul avatar would descend. With the Ancestor of Prestige around, what could happen? Immediately, Miss Li rushed in with the two elders. Miss Li looked at the dark corridor and said with a firm tone, "No matter where Sovereign Yong's halberd is, I will take you down." Sovereign Yong's halberd was in the corridor. And it was in Lu Li's hands. Lu Li held the halberd of Sovereign Yong in his hand. His face was filled with joy as he caressed it. The halberd was very long, more than 10 feet long. It was dark red in color, and there were many gorgeous patterns on it. The halberd was very domineering, and also very gorgeous. The thick smell of blood on it made Lu Li's blood boil. It was as if he could kill all enemies with the halberd. Naturally, it was because of the tomb keeper that he had obtained the halberd. The tomb keeper finally compromised. Lu Li settled for the next best thing. He asked the tomb keeper to send over all the treasures in the tomb of Emperor Yong. What the tomb keeper did not expect was that not only were countless materials and elixirs sent over, even the halberd of Sovereign Yong was sent over. "I've hit the jackpot this time." Lu Li beamed with joy. With a wave of his hand, the piles of materials and elixirs were put away. The materials filled up the corridor for at least a few 100 feet. If he sold them, he could probably buy the biggest mansion in the holy city of the realm of flying immortals. "Alright, we can run now," Lu Li said to Blood Fairy. "Blood Fairy, send a message to the tomb keeper to send us out directly from the tomb of Emperor Yong." Blood Fairy went to talk to the tomb keeper. However, what the tomb keeper said gave Lu Li a headache. The tomb keeper said that there were only 2 exits to the tomb of Emperor Yong. The first was the entrance they came in from, and the second was the teleportation altar in the hall. The tomb keeper could not send Lu Li to the 2 exits directly. The tomb keeper had to undo the runes on the corridor so that Lu Li could go to the hall. Lu Li was speechless. There were a bunch of Saint Emperors out in the corridor. Wasn't he walking right into a trap? Please remember the domain name of this book. 3rd Sect Leaders Mobile Version. Chapter 3077. Clearly, Emperor Yong had made many agreements with the tomb keepers when he built the tomb. The tomb of Emperor Yong could not be destroyed. That must have been the most basic principle. Otherwise, what was the point of the tomb keeper's existence? Emperor Yong would not allow the place where he rested after his death to be completely destroyed. The tomb keeper could not actively kill the challengers, which Lu Li was sure of. Otherwise, Lu Li and Blood Fairy would have been killed by the tomb keeper. Lu Li was sure of these 2 facts. He was in an invincible position. That was why Lu Li was able to get the halberd of Emperor Yong so easily. He was lucky enough to get it from Lady Li. If he had been any later, the halberd of Emperor Yong would have been gone. Lu Li could walk out of the corridor easily. However, there was no exit. The tomb keeper could not teleport him out directly, which was a headache for Lu Li. Is the tomb keeper doing this on purpose? Is he trying to get back at me by not teleporting me out and sending me to my death? Lu Li thought of a possibility. After a moment, he asked Blood Fairy to send a message, urging the tomb watcher to teleport him out or else the tomb of Emperor Yong would collapse. Lu Li's threat did not work. The tomb keeper said that Lu Li could not do anything even if he wanted the tomb to collapse. When the tomb was built, it was a whole. In other words, this was an independent small world. Lu Li only controlled some of the patterns in the tomb, not the entire small world. The corridor was closed with no exit. Lu Li had to go back the way he came. If he wanted to leave, he would have to go back to the hall. Luli pouted. But there was no other way. What could he do? He picked up the halberd of Emperor Yong and tried to put it away. However, the interspatial ring glowed. He could not put the halberd of Emperor Yong in, which surprised him. He thought about it and took out the holy mountain. He wanted to teleport it along with him. However, he could go in, but the halberd of Emperor Yong could not. It fell to the ground. He felt the halberd of Emperor Yong was trying to break free from his hand. This is strange. Luli dashed out. He picked up the halberd of Emperor Yong and studied it. After a while, he asked Blood Fairy to send a message to the tomb keeper. Soon, he got the answer. The halberd of Emperor Yong was born with a spirit. Before it was taken control, it could not be put into an interspatial ring or an interspatial artifact. What? Luli was troubled. He could not carry the halberd of Emperor Yong around the world, could he? Moreover, Sovereign Yong's halberd couldn't enter the Sage Mountain. If he encountered danger and entered the Sage Mountain, he could only abandon Sovereign Yong's halberd. If he held onto the Yong Emperor's halberd, his safety would not be guaranteed. He could only refine the Yong Huang halberd first. Luli sat on the ground with his legs crossed. He was not in a hurry. It had been a long time, and the powerful warriors from outside hadn't come in. Maybe they wouldn't come in any time soon. He poured a small amount of divine power into the halberd in an attempt to refine it. After refining it for an hour, he discovered that there were no changes, so he could only circulate his origin energy and try to refine it with it. This time there was a reaction. However, Zhang Xian's reaction was extremely slow. Even after refining it for an hour, the Sovereign Yong halberd had only undergone a slight change. It would take at least 10 days to half a month for Zhang Xian to completely refine it. Refine it? Luli asked Blood Fairy to keep an eye on the surroundings while he focused on controlling the halberd of Sovereign Yonder. There was no need to look at this divine weapon to know that it was a top-notch holy weapon. Once it was refined, its power would be extraordinary. Soon, several days passed. From the other end of the corridor, a group of powerful warriors were flying over. They seemed to be moving fast, but in fact they were moving at a snail's pace. The corridor did have strong laws of time and space, which was the result of years of study by the tomb keepers. The corridor was not long. It was an independent space where the laws of time and space were different. Therefore, walking in the corridor seemed fast, but in fact it was very slow. The group of powerful warriors felt something was off as well. They were moving so fast. No matter how long the corridor was, they should have reached the end. This place is really strange. The patriarch of the wild race was solemn. He already sensed danger when they were outside. Now that they were inside, it was even more dangerous. It was not fatal, but it was possible that they would be trapped in here forever. Keep flying. I don't believe that the corridor is endless. Miss Eli's complexion was still very pale, but her pretty face was filled with stubbornness. While swallowing medicinal pills, she continued to fly forward quickly. The other Saint Emperors did the same. They did not believe that the corridor was endless. They were moving so fast. How could they not reach the end? Soon, 10 days had passed. The group of Saint Emperors was dumbfounded. They had been flying for 10 days, but the corridor was still the same. It was as if they had always been at the same spot. Some Saint Emperors began to attack the walls on both sides or try to decipher the patterns on the walls. However, it was pointless. The 2 Saint Emperors of the wild race were panicking. Only Lady Eli did not panic. At most, she could ask the avatar of the Fu Zhu. To her, the Fu Zhu was omnipotent. Master, something is going on. Blood Fairy sensed the Saint Emperors were attacking the walls. Luli opened his eyes and groaned inwardly. Since there was something going on, there must be other Saint Emperors coming. The holy weapon was about to be taken control of. In 1 or 2 days, at most. If he could enter the holy mountain, He could just let the holy mountain fly away. However, he could go in, but Emperor Yong's halberd could not. How far away are we? Luli asked. Blood Fairy tried to sense and replied, 1 or 2 days. I can't tell for sure. The space here is too strange. Okay, Luli thought about it and said, keep monitoring. At the same time, talk to the tomb keeper. Ask him to think of a way to keep those people away from me. Okay. Blood Fairy answered. Luli didn't care anymore. He focused on taking control of the holy weapon. Once the holy weapon was done, he could enter the holy mountain at any time. Not even the average Saint Emperors could compete with the holy mountain. The holy mountain was 10 times faster than sacred ancestor Yuan. Soon, 1 day passed. The Saint Emperors at the front were close to Luli. Blood Fairy sent a message in time, but Luli did nothing. The holy weapon was about to be taken control of. What? The Saint Emperor at the front casually scanned the area with his psychic power and easily found Luli. He stopped and his eyes lit up. What is it? The second Saint Emperor stopped as well. He looked at the first Saint Emperor and used psychic power to check. Soon, he shouted, Emperor Yong's halberd. Emperor Yong's halberd is here. Why is it in the hands of a human? This Saint Emperor's voice caught the attention of many Saint Emperors and Lady Li. They used psychic power to check at once and locked on to Luli. This human bastard is here? A glint of killing intent rose in Aou's eyes. He was surprised. He could not understand why Luli had the halberd of Emperor Yong. Buzzing, right at that moment, Luli's halberd of Emperor Yong glowed in red. A surge of horrifying energy spread out from the halberd. A surge of murderous intent filled an area with a radius of 300 miles. The halberd of Emperor Yong might have been a dead object before, but now it had come to life. Buzzing, the holy mountain glowed as well. Luli carried the halberd of Emperor Yong and dashed into the holy mountain. Then, in a blur, the holy mountain vanished into the dark haze in the corridor. Please remember the domain name of this book. Third Sect Leader's Mobile Version. Chapter 3078. It's him. Lady Li was surprised. She had a deep impression of Luli. Back at the Black Tortoise City, she asked Luli to buy a stock of elixir, but Luli refused. Later, because of Luli, the Shao demon came out and caused a stir. The incident at the Yin and Yang universe was because of Luli. The Red Dragon race and Goen were after Luli, which shocked the Yin and Yang universe. Many things happened recently because of Luli. It was hard for Lady Li not to remember Luli. Now, the halberd of Sovereign Yong was in Luli's hands? Lady Li was enraged. Her eyes were filled with killing intent. Lady Li already had a bad impression of Luli. Now it was even worse. She had decided that the halberd of Sovereign Yong was hers. She had thought of bringing it back, being recognized and praised by the seniors of her race, and her fame would spread across the Infinite Star region. She had it all planned out. She was happy. But the halberd of Sovereign Yong was gone. Luli had taken it. How could she not be angry? It was as if her treasure was taken away by a beggar. Go. Go after him. I want to kill him. Lady Li took another pellet to recover. She sped up to the top of her speed and chased after the 2 founding patriarchs of the wild race. Go, go, go! All the Saint Emperors were excited. If Lady Li had taken the halberd of Sovereign Yong, they would not be able to take it. Now, the halberd of Sovereign Yong had nothing to do with Lady Li. If they could get it, it would be inexcusable if Lady Li tried to take it. Luli, an Emperor Realm warrior, was no different from a puny insect to them. If they could catch up, killing Luli would be a piece of cake. Once Luli was dead, the halberd of Sovereign Yong would be theirs. But none of the Saint Emperors, including Lady Li, could figure out how Luli got the halberd of Sovereign Yong. Luli never showed up in the hall. He never showed himself. How did the halberd of Sovereign Yong suddenly appear in Luli's hands? The group of Saint Emperors were all old farts. They had seen many things, but they had never heard of such a strange thing. The Saint Emperors sped up, but they had been chasing for an hour without seeing even a shadow of the holy mountain. The group of Saint Emperors could not figure out how Luli, an Emperor Realm warrior, could be so fast. Of course, Luli was fast. Holy Mountain was faster than the average Saint Emperor. The strongest here was Aou, but there was still a gap between Aou and Holy Mountain. The halberd of Emperor Yong was taken control of, but Luli was not happy at all. Because the matter of him obtaining the Yong Emperor halberd was exposed, the group of Saint Emperors all knew that he had obtained the Yong Emperor halberd. Even if he managed to escape, the news would quickly spread throughout Infinite Region. He would become a street rat and be hunted down by all the experts in Infinite Region. Could it be that the Tomb Keeper did it on purpose? A thought came to Luli's mind. Was this a conspiracy of the Tomb Keepers? Because of the agreement with Emperor Yong, the Tomb Keeper could not kill him directly. So he used a borrowed knife to kill him? Purposely letting a group of Saint Emperors know that he had obtained the halberd of Emperor Yong, so that he could borrow the strength of a group of Saint Emperors to kill him? Very likely. A glint of coldness rose in Luli's eyes. The Tomb Watcher could send countless materials and Emperor Yong's halberd over. How could he not be able to send Luli away? At the very least, it should be easy for the Tomb Watcher to send Luli to the entrance. Such a huge pile of divine materials could be directly teleported over, but not a single person? Luli did not believe it. The more he thought about it, the more he believed this was a conspiracy. The Tomb Watcher was setting him up. After a while, Luli flew the Holy Mountain forward. 2 hours later, he stopped the Holy Mountain and gave an order to Blood Fairy. Blood Fairy, go down and release your rhythm. Mess up the tomb of Emperor Yong. Don't mind him even if the tomb of Emperor Yong is going to collapse. Do not stop until the Tomb Watcher sends us to the entrance. Okay. Blood Fairy carried out Luli's order to the letter without any doubt. She went in at once and began to use her rhythm to control the patterns in the tomb of Emperor Yong. Boom, 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 the patterns in the halls were glowing. Many of them were messed up. The entire tomb of Emperor Yong seemed to be on the verge of collapse. Even the divine inscriptions in the hallway were flashing incessantly, giving the Saint Emperors chasing after them a fright. The Tomb Watcher kept sending messages, but Blood Fairy paid no attention to him. She said coldly that if they could not be sent out, then she would destroy the tomb of Emperor Yong. The Tomb Watcher said that he could not do that. He had to find a way to get rid of the pursuers and let them out. Blood Fairy was a stubborn girl. She did not even ask Luli. She continued to control the patterns with her rhythm to mess up the patterns. All right, in the time for 3 incense sticks to burn, the Tomb Watcher could not stand it anymore. He said, "Okay, I will modify the patterns and send you to the entrance. Stop right now." "Okay," Blood Fairy told Luli. He nodded and teleported Blood Fairy back into his body. He put away the Holy Mountain and was ready to teleport out. Even though he could leave, he was not in a good mood. Leaving did not mean that he would be safe. He believed that soon, all the powerful warriors in the entire region of Infinite Star would hunt him down. He must find a way to escape or he would die for sure. The only fortunate thing was that he had learned the skill of transfiguration. With this skill, he could take the appearance of any race and hide. If he could learn the skill of cloaking and the swift, then his chances of escaping would be greatly increased. When I get out, I must fly away and find a way to hide. I must master the skill of cloaking first. Luli made up his mind. Time moved on. An hour later, the Tomb Watcher sent back a message, telling Luli to keep flying and he would be teleported to the entrance. Luli flew on the Holy Mountain at once. In an hour, he had reached the end. At the end, there was a ring of light. Luli came out from the Holy Mountain. He checked and then dashed into the ring of light. After a flash of white light, he appeared in the cave he came from. This time, the tomb watcher did not lie to him. He was teleported to the cave. Wait. At that moment, Luli suddenly realized that he had been tricked by the tomb watcher again. The tomb watcher could modify the patterns and teleport Luli here. Then why didn't it just teleport Luli here? Why did it create a portal? It was to make it easier for the warriors chasing after him to come out from the portal. The tomb watcher would not be satisfied until Luli was dead. That being said, it was understandable. The tomb watcher had to give Luli all the treasures under Luli's coercion. Many halls in the tomb of Emperor Yong were destroyed. The tomb watcher must be enraged. It was not unusual for him to seek revenge. Never mind. Let's go. Luli snuck into the holy mountain and flew out in a blur. He did not hide his tracks. He flew on like crazy. A group of Saint Emperors would come out soon. He must get away before they could catch up with him. There were still many warriors on the Skeleton Mountain, including some Saint Emperors who stayed behind. Naturally, the holy mountain alarmed many warriors as it dashed out. Unfortunately, the holy mountain was too fast. Many warriors could not see it clearly before it was gone. 2 Saint Emperors tried to go after it, but they were too slow. An hour later, the holy mountain flew out of the Skeleton Mountain. Luli did not choose to fly to the distance. Instead, under the watchful eyes of many warriors, he flew up into the sky. It seemed he was ready to leave the Yin and Yang universe. Please remember the domain name of this book. Third Sect Leader's Mobile Version. Chapter 3079. Buzzing groups of powerful warriors swarmed out from the cave. When they arrived at the cave, they were all stunned. After a moment, many Saint Kings flew out to track Luli. Lady Li and Aou came out as well. They did not linger. Aou crushed a jade talisman. Without waiting for Aochi, he began to search around. Killing Luli was a task given by the Cauldron Sovereign. Now was the right time. Everything would be perfect if Luli was killed. It is a pity that Goen is dead, Aou felt sorry. Goen was much better at tracking. But it was pointless to say anything now. Aou had to rush out. Go after him. Lady Li waved her hand and rushed out with 2 founding patriarchs. The group of Saint Emperors seemed to have been injected with chicken blood as they searched everywhere. Soon, they learned where Luli had gone from nearby warriors. Soon, all the Saint Kings flew out of the void. Messages were sent out one after another. Soon, countless soldiers were mobilized and flew out of the void in a frenzy. At the same time, a series of messages were quickly transmitted to all the realms in all directions. Many families of the Yin and Yang universe were not here. They sent messages back to their headquarters, asking them to mobilize powerful warriors to hunt down Luli. Since there were so many families in the Yin and Yang universe, the news could not be kept a secret. Therefore, after the news spread out in the Yin and Yang universe, it spread across the entire star region of Infinite Star as well. A human great emperor took the halberd of Sovereign Yong and was running away. Naturally, such a piece of shocking news attracted the attention of many races. After all, the halberd of Sovereign Yong was so famous. How could a human great emperor take it? If they could find the human great emperor and kill him, the halberd of Sovereign Yong would be theirs. What was more, many people were surprised. Naturally, the halberd of Sovereign Yong was in the tomb of Emperor Yong. So many Saint Kings went in and it was taken by a human great emperor? Wasn't this a joke? What kind of secrets were hidden in this? Many powerful warriors began to move. Many founding patriarchs of the 33 races nearby came to fight for the halberd of Sovereign Yong. Many warriors were coming as well. The void around the Yin and Yang universe was bustling with noise and excitement. It was even livelier than when they were hunting Xiao Mo. Last time, Luli did not gain anything from the Xiao demon. But this time, he had the halberd of Emperor Yong, a top-level holy weapon. Most importantly, Emperor Yong's halberd was engraved with the true meaning of time and space, which was extremely rare. When unleashing a killer move, the laws of time and space would be released together, which was extremely terrifying. The dozens of Saint Emperors and Miss Li immediately rushed out, but there was nothing outside the void. Aou also contacted the Tiango clan, who were hiding outside, to search everywhere. After 3 days of searching, all the powerful warriors were dumbfounded. They came to the same conclusion: Lu Li had vanished from the face of the earth. There were so many powerful warriors, more than 100,000 warriors and warriors from other nearby armies. Lu Li was not going to be able to fly or burrow into the ground when all of them were surrounding him. In the void, countless warships shuttled back and forth, and countless more warships flew over. Aou had sent a message back, and countless cultivators and troops of the Red Dragon clan were also rushing over. Miss Li had also transmitted the message to the Desolate race. The Desolate race had also sent some experts and troops over. Recently, the Yin and Yang universe had become unprecedentedly lively. Lu Li, an insignificant human being, had attracted many people's attention. Of course, more powerful warriors were not concerned about Lu Li, but Emperor Yong's halberd. 10 days. After searching for 10 days, they still could not find him. There was not even a trace of him. Miss Li and many families of the Yin and Yang universe had their eyes on the Yin and Yang universe. There was no one outside. Lu Li could not have vanished into thin air. The only possibility was that Lu Li had never come out. He was hiding in the Yin and Yang universe. Many families of the Yin and Yang universe began to send secret messages back, asking those in the Yin and Yang universe to start searching quietly. They continued to pretend to search outside. The powerful warriors of the Yin and Yang universe did not go in to search, but Miss Li suggested it. The powerful warriors of the Yin and Yang universe wanted to refuse, but seeing Miss Li's gloomy face, the group of Saint Emperors did not dare to say anything. Miss Li did not seem to have a good temper, and she was bound to become the most powerful warrior of the Desolate race in the future. The most powerful warrior of the Desolate race was the most powerful warrior of the entire star region of Infinite Star Region. If they offended Miss Li, they would not have a good time in the future. Therefore, after some discussion, they decided to let Miss Li go in. How many powerful warriors could Miss Li bring in? The Yin and Yang universe was huge. If the few powerful warriors of the Desolate race were to enter, it would be like a few drops of water in the sea. There were so many families, and they could mobilize hundreds of millions of scouts. Almost every city had scouts. If there were unfamiliar humans, they would be able to recognize them easily. There were not many humans in the Yin and Yang universe. Miss Li brought 2 Desolate race elders and flew towards the Yin and Yang universe. The Desolate race had also sent powerful warriors over, but they would not arrive so quickly. It would take at least a month. The Yin and Yang universe began to bustle. All the big and small family clans were mobilized. They began to search the entire world for a hidden human. Every human's identity had to be confirmed. If they had never lived in the Yin and Yang universe before and did not know anything about them, they would be focused on and might even be captured. In addition, it was not only the human race. All the unfamiliar Emperor-level warriors in the big and small cities would also be noticed. The current situation was that whoever found Lu Li first would get Emperor Yong's halberd. However, hundreds of millions of scouts and soldiers searched all the cities, but to no avail. They captured quite a number of humans and unfamiliar warriors, but none of them were Lu Li. If there was no one in the cities, then they would have to search outside the cities, in the wilderness. Countless scouts and powerful warriors began to leave the cities and search the Yin and Yang universe. Many mountains and wilderness were filled with the figures of scouts. Soon, 3 months had passed. something that made countless powerful warriors dumbfounded happen. Be it outside or inside the yin and yang universe, Luli could not be found. It was as if Luli had vanished into thin air, or had teleported away from the vicinity. Aou and Aochi, who had already come out, were worried. They suspected that Luli had successfully cultivated Xiao Mo's skill of transfiguration. Goen had said before that Luli might have cultivated Xiao Mo's skill of transfiguration. If he had really succeeded, then it would be difficult to find Luli. Back then, how many families wanted to kill Xiao Mo? If it were not for Ancestor Fu, they might not have found him. In 3 months, so many powerful warriors and armies had been mobilized, but they still could not find Luli. Then, the possibility of finding Luli was very low. Many old demons had given up. They were still circling around because they wanted to watch the show and see Luli make a fool of himself. The news of Goen's death had spread. The Heavenly Hound race was enraged. Patriarchs of Hall of Warfare had come with many powerful warriors. So did many patriarchs of the Desolate race. Soon there would be a good show. Luli, the name of that human, was confirmed. His portrait was drawn and pasted all over the cities of the Yin and Yang universe. Many scouts and warriors had Luli's portrait. Regardless of the outcome, Luli had made a name for himself in the desolate region of universe. Please remember the domain name of this book. Third Sect Leader's mobile version. Chapter 3080. Luli was in the Yin and Yang universe, but he was not in a city or in the wild. He was in a land of resources. This was a treasure land of resources, a treasure land of a big race. There were many slaves in this treasure land, and Luli was one of them. Using the skill of transfiguration, he could change his appearance and realm. When Luli rushed out from the skeleton mountain, he pretended to fly up. As a matter of fact, he had planned to hide in the Yin and Yang universe. What was he going to do in the void? It was empty and he would be discovered easily. It would be fine if he had mastered the stealth skill. Therefore, he had to hide in the Yin and Yang universe and find a place to cultivate. Once he mastered the stealth skill, he could run away. At first, he wanted to go to a city because he could change his appearance and realm at will. He could teleport away constantly and find a small city to hide in. After flying for half a day, he found a good place to hide. The slaves in a land of resources belonging to a major race were rioting. That race was suppressing the slaves with iron and blood. Many slaves were taken back. How could Luli miss such a good chance? Therefore, he disguised himself as a dwarf and changed into the clothes of a dead body. He pretended to be at the peak of the fourth tribulation and was taken back by the major family easily. After he was captured, he was imprisoned together with a group of slaves. He was also poisoned. An expert of this large clan came in and released a poisonous mist, poisoning the slaves inside to death. Luli could have easily withstood the poison, but not only did he not, but he also absorbed more poison than the other slaves. As a result, he also suffered inhuman pain. At this moment, he seemed to be on the verge of death as he lay in the cell. Some of the slaves nearby had died. Their bodies began to stink. Many slaves were rolling around on the ground in pain and scratching themselves. The underground cell was like hell. The more it was like this, the happier Luli was. Who could tell that he was hiding here? As long as nobody could track him down, he would be safe. He was lying in a corner. He seemed to be on the verge of death. He could not move at all. That being said, he was secretly studying the stealth skill. He was praying that he could stay here for a while longer. When he mastered the stealth skill, he would be able to conquer the world. This was a canyon called the Earth Dragon Canyon. There were many mines in the canyon, and there was a kind of crystal stone underground. Although it was not particularly precious, there was a lot of it. The Yin and Yang universe was bustling with activity. All the families were searching for Luli. However, there was a slave rebellion here. The leader of this place was a peak overlord. He was very angry. Half of the slaves that escaped were killed, and the remaining half were locked up and tortured. The Saint Emperor did not dare to report this matter. At this moment the clan was busy. If he reported this matter, he would appear very incompetent in the eyes of the upper echelons. Therefore, he ordered the army to collect all the corpses outside and activated the Grand Array in the canyon to seal off the area. He decided to wait until this incident was over before reporting to the higher-ups. Their race was called the U-race. They sent an order to the peak of the Great Emperor realm to check the surroundings and see if there was any trace of Luli. This peak emperor-ranked warrior carried out the order of his race. However, most of the slaves here were from the dwarf race. There were no so-called humans, so he didn't care. Luli stayed in the underground prison for 3 months. He did not know that there were hundreds of millions of warriors and powerful warriors searching for him outside and in the void. He cultivated in the prison, having a good time. But today, his good days had come to an end. All the slaves were driven out and they had to go back to mining. This time, there were military supervision, which made it impossible for Luli to cultivate. It was difficult to dig out the ores. The rocks underground were hard. If Luli could show his abilities, he could grab the ores easily. However, he only showed that he was at the peak of the fourth tribulation. Naturally, mining became more difficult. There were military patrols nearby. Luli and the others had to work day and night. Luli had no other choice. He had to live a simple life and wait for the storm to blow over. Lady Li and the others went to the Yin and Yang universe. But they didn't think it was meaningful. The Yin and Yang universe was a large place. How could she and the 2 patriarchs find it? How? Hundreds of millions of warriors had been searching for him, and they couldn't find him. How could they find him just by wandering around? Outside in the void, a powerful patriarch of the wild race came with a team. He wanted to mobilize an army, but only 5 patriarchs came. But the 5 patriarchs were powerful. They were famous warriors of the barren universe. The 5 patriarchs were not here to track down Luli. They were here to stabilize the situation. Many powerful warriors of the Heavenly Hound race came. Go-An's death infuriated the Heavenly Hound race. They were one of the 33 races. How could a patriarch of their race die for no reason? Their race needed an explanation. As the overlord of the barren universe, the wild race saw the barren universe as their backyard. They would not allow their backyard to be in chaos. Therefore, they sent some powerful warriors over. Firstly, to intimidate, and secondly, to mediate the conflict and appease both sides. The races of the Yin and Yang universe did not panic at all. There were so many smaller races in the Yin and Yang universe. They were not afraid of the Heavenly Hound race. The Heavenly Hound race's tracking skills were unparalleled in the world. But their combat abilities were not particularly famous in the barren universe. Besides, they were not in the wrong. Even if they fought, they were in the right. The Heavenly Hound race arrived outside the Yin and Yang universe. They were not in a hurry to attack. That was because the powerful warriors of the wild race had arrived long ago. They had intercepted the Heavenly Hound warriors. A powerful patriarch of the wild race personally went to the battle patriarch of the Heavenly Hound race and handed him the seal stone that had been recorded. Actually, the Heavenly Hound race already knew the truth. As one of the 33 races, they had to do something about the death of a patriarch. It would make the other races of the barren universe look down on them. Therefore, when the battle patriarch of the Heavenly Hound race, Go-Lu, saw the seal stone, he did not buy it. He said that if the races did not give him an explanation, they could not enter the Yin and Yang universe. However, they would attack the races that had killed Goen. This did not violate the agreement of the 33 races. The wild race could not interfere. These races not only had territory in the Yin and Yang universe, they also occupied other realms. Golu's intentions were clear. If they did not give the Heavenly Hound race a way out, they would have to fight a losing battle. Regardless of the outcome, they had to let all the races in the barren universe know that the Heavenly Hound race was not to be trifled with. Their patriarchs were not to be easily killed. When the desolate race patriarch passed on the Heavenly Hound race's intentions, the 12 races in the Yin and Yang universe were indignant. Goen had broken the rules by entering the Yin and Yang universe for no reason. Goen had said that he had left the Heavenly Hound race, so it had nothing to do with the Heavenly Hound race. Now that the Heavenly Hound race had come knocking on their door, did they really think that they were afraid? Usually, these large races were often bullied by the 33 races. Now that they finally had a legitimate opportunity, they naturally wanted to fight the Heavenly Hound race. The 12 race leaders discussed and formed an alliance on the same day. They announced that there was no explanation. If the Heavenly Hound race wanted to fight, they would fight. Please remember this book's domain name. Third Sect Leaders Mobile Version. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.